that has been in negotiations for a very, very long time, and finally has come to an agreement. And so, public hearing, anybody would like to speak?
I'd just like
We'd like to speak for a long time?
I don't know,
Okay, well, wait, let's just make sure if the camera's on. It's on, okay, and so if you could just get the person, and you know what I'd like to try to do is if we could grab the microphone so people watching TV can, they never can hear the people sitting in the public.
Sure.
So, see if you can turn that on, and,
We're good.
okay, it's on?
Yes.
Okay, great.
So
Okay.
I wanted to speak in favor of the ratification of the new franchise agreement with Time Warner Cable. And I just wanted to give a shout out to the people who helped negotiate this, which for the town, who included Andrea Russo, Dave Lent, Tony Hokinson, Kitty Brown, Susan Zimmett, Kevin Barry, Randall Ledrett. It's quite a 7-year endeavor to get this done, and I just wanted to thank everyone involved.
And
Thank
it
you.
has the full support of the public access.
And it has the full support of the Public Access Committee. Yes, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? So, should we keep it open a little while longer, or should we make a motion to close?
Make the motion to close.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Okay, so we have 5-minute break until we start again. Right.
I just found it in my mailbox.
Okay, here guys,
We should be able to be out of here.
I can't guarantee when we'll get out of here.
What kind of sees assets?
That's not on the agenda. It was taken off.
Thank you.
Yeah, because for some reason.
So
when-
you're done.
I'll be watching at home when you vote.
Okay,
I'll be
thanks.
clapping. All right.
No, I don't know. How the hell is this gonna- Damn it. So, front and back. I thought I had 5 copies of this, so I have to go make more. Hey, Kitty, you might want to start looking at this. Damn.
How are you? You too. What's going on? It's good.
Yeah, it's good.
You do a guitar?
What's that?
So it's smaller, right?
Yeah, it's an electric.
You playing tonight?
What's that?
You playing somewhere tonight?
No. Just coming by the town board meetings.
You've been spending a lot of time in Sydney?
No, I've been up here
Have you?
a little bit of time, but like 3 days a week there. So, yeah, it's good. It's a good.
You do? Yeah.
2 years into it.
Just take a look at that.
wasn't gonna, since nobody ever wrote back to me, I just fixed my schedule. Yeah.
And he knows what's going on. Happy New Year. Yeah.
Nah, they must be offering it for a reason.
No.
Wow.
Hey, Jeffrey. How you doing?
How about those New Paltz girls?
Yeah.
How about it? We're down to only losing by about 30 games now.
They actually had a decent.
Kitty, did yours start like this?
Did you go?
Do you have the town board on the top?
Against,
Yeah.
I'm actually, I just wanna highlight some of the highlights of the
Okay.
contract.
No,
Time Warner
first half, because the
contract.
game ended.
Oh,
Island had a big
Okay.
win on that.
what do you mean, how
I
long?
did, but they had
Well,
decent
just, I
first
want
half.
people
Okay.
to know
I mean, it wasn't-
good things
Oh,
that are
okay.
in the contract.
Okay,
Okay.
okay, fine. I just got this in here, but I needed it for tonight. This is a Park Point letter, but we'll talk
Okay.
about it in a second, but I just had to go print it.
That's fine.
And then I gave you guys, and then this is also about Park Point, about the, it's about Park Point, about the, RFP. So just take that.
That sounds
Okay.
good.
What's this?
Come in here. I got pulled over.
Oh, flow control. I didn't make copies of this.
Not sure.
Everything at the last minute.
That's what I did. I leave my house. I cut over.
Laura, did everybody get copies of this, or just, is this just one copy? Okay.
Guess what they sit there for? Well, I did it.
Hey, how are you?
I don't know what to
Oh,
do.
thank you. It's only like this when I go get my roots done, and they always blow it out.
Oh, yeah?
What they
Yeah.
do is-
But I've had people telling me they like the curls because it's powerful. But it's nice, thanks.
Huguenot.
No need for that.
Kingston making escape Newport. He goes, believe it or not, there's half the people you pull over doing that.
Yes,
And
that's my
I take
bad.
it a DUI. I said, you know what, there's a lot of people that think I would do a lot better if I went to Army drunk, so thank you. So keep that in mind.
Yeah, I will. I was reading your notes.
Oh my, can you believe those?
Let's try to look there now. See what Chris did, everybody? Everybody notice what Chris did?
You know, I almost wish you were here because
I,
you
Mike
and Bill
Calhoun
Wallace
was
would have
looking
been
at
just
that the
like.
other night.
Yes,
and
Chris
I-
put that up there so I don't have to keep going like this,
Oh,
so I could look there.
A couple
And,
times he actually gave, a couple times he
it's
let
like,
happen.
come on, guys.
Out of here by
A couple times he
11.
Right,
actually let
exactly.
No overtime.
Right.
They got from the village.
What the
What
hell
was
is this?
the,
Okay, this is, okay.
I've read a couple of them. Oh,
And everybody's microphones are on?
better dental one, like, what's the better one?
I didn't know.
Oh, come in for 5 minutes.
Chris, are all, oh, the microphones are all on, right?
The hilarious one too.
Oh, they'll be on when we start. Yes, they're on now? Okay, so nobody can complain about not being able to hear.
Don't get used to those, I gotta change them out again.
You know, Bill,
What do you mean?
He said, number 35, we'll close right now. He
Okay.
said, absolutely.
Can I have
The
a
answer is
copy
yes.
of the latest and
Now,
greatest
what you're gonna get for
agenda?
benefits?
Well, it actually is what was sent out. I'll
But I
add
will
stuff.
lock in your rates right
You know,
now.
the stuff that
Ran out
gets
of
in.
Now,
ink on the
Stuff
Come
gets
to
on.
me when your
version
deductible
of
is
So, what do you want me
$5,000.
to do about this?
If you wanna lock in your rates, I'll lock them in. He goes, so are you sure? He was the worst, their union guy. If you were here, you would, you and Bill would have been literally in tears.
Oh, yeah.
The two of you
Well,
would have been
hopefully-
like, finally you would have been like, even Bill walked away like, Bill walked away like.
Which one?
So, we'll meet with them again in March.
What's, there's a difference.
They had nothing to give.
There is, yeah, sewer, oh, no, they're here.
Nothing.
It's all the same.
and they kept throwing out the word.
Okay, can I have can I have a motion to open up the meeting?
So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion so carried. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great. Okay, welcome everybody. I need to add a few things to the agenda. Do you guys have the tree resolution on your agenda or you don't?
I do not.
Okay, when Al talks about the scenic byway, he's also gonna talk about a tree resolution that we need to pass in time for the Association of Towns meeting in February, because it's gonna be considered there, and Al will explain that. I have to add the Association of Town meeting. You all got copies of the expense and the agenda there, so we have to decide who's gonna go tonight, so we can make the reservations. We have to do a reclassification for the rec director as per civil service. I would like also for an authorization for the supervisor to sign the Time Warner contract, so we can get it to Time Warner and then to the FCC, and then we can get our $250,000 that they owe us. And then there's a Park Point Planning Board, the letter to the planning board that I just gave you all, that I just got from George Lithgow. And the RFP for Park Point, there's an email from Dave Clauser. And then a possibility of talking about the Edmund system and escrow, and I'll talk about that. So
What
that's
was the last thing?
the Edmund system, our
Set.
bookkeeping system.
Okay.
And there's a,
Building department.
there's something we can get for the building department that will help us manage escrows, and so I want to talk about that. Okay?
I think also, I had put it on there, and I think Kevin probably saw the notes, is do we need to do any budget modifications tonight to pay some
No.
of the bills?
No, I think we'll do that next week.
Okay,
Right now,
no, as long
everything's
as that's
okay.
good, okay, as long as
Yeah,
you're good on
we're
that.
okay.
And then the other one is also, do we need to make any modifications, or do you wanna do all, just so we have money for a possible contract?
And I think we're okay right now.
Okay, right
so,
now, okay,
yeah,
good,
yeah,
no, that's
yeah.
good. As long as you're
Patty
good
and I
on all the
talked
budget.
today,
Okay,
and so
no,
we can do some stuff next week.
As long as you're good on it.
Okay, yeah.
No, I'm good.
Okay? So, do I have a motion to amend the agenda?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion so moved. Okay, I guess we'll do the public input, because it's on the agenda next, and then I'll do the announcements, and then we'll get to the presentation. So, would anybody like to speak from the public? On anything? But if you're going to speak, I would appreciate you come get the microphone, say your name, but then speak into the microphone so the people in the listening, viewing audience can hear you.
I used to sit down, I guess,
You can sit down if you want,
no, that's all right, I guess.
just use the microphone.
Just kind of observations, updates, and points of interest that I've been thinking about. As far as deputy supervisor, I'd like to nominate Kevin Barry as our first choice. I think that his commitment and qualifications are definitely what we need for this town. And Kevin, if you take the job, great. If not, I think that Jeff Logan is also a very good candidate for the job. As far as Park Point goes, I think that the town should send a formal letter to the county saying no tax relief for this project. They can go to Gardner or Highland or Rosendale, but there's no college there, so I guess that project is not going to get off the ground in those towns. So we have a captive audience. I think we tax them, and with the money we're going to make, we can build a sewer plant out of gold bricks. There was a student in the high school of New Falls who wrote a letter about sidewalks. I think he's talking about South Butt Corners. But I happen to know the student, and he lives in Gardner.
Ray, take mine. It's actually got a plug-in power supply.
Well, I know the student. Sorry, Rosanna.
Ray, Rosanna?
I know the student, and he lives in Gardner. And, I've noticed that Gardner residents seem to come to New Paltz a lot for services. And I think that the ones that are close enough to the town line should secede to the town, because we could use the money. All right. Sorry, Rosanna. As far as the river and Central Hudson go, I'd like to say that Central Hudson has been a great neighbor. They stepped up to the plate when we had issues with extensive flooding. I don't know, I cross the bridge every day and I see when there's no rain coming, that river is making electricity, and when there's something coming down the pike, they lower it right down for us. So if you haven't noticed that we haven't flooded in a while, I gotta say that Central Hudson, my crusade by going to stockholders meetings and stuff like that has paid off. You know, I got an iPhone, and kind of, you know, you're kind of looking at stuff you don't really normally look at, but I Googled New Paltz, and to my surprise, Mohawk Mountain House is our landmark. I'm not even sure if Mohawk Mountain House is in our town. I think it's in the next town over. We can't even, is your microphone going too? I'm thinking our landmark.
It's a conspiracy, right?
Yeah, our landmark, isn't our landmark like Huguenot Street, or the college, or, you know, something in New Paltz?
decides who our landmark is?
Yeah, our landmark is Mohawk Mountain House, and I was like, that's weird. That's all my points of interest today. Thank you.
Ray, just so you know, those 2 high school kids that wrote that letter to the paper is part of a class they're taking, so that's the reason why they wrote. And I'm not interested in the deputy job, thank you.
Kevin, we got microphones so people could hear people.
Right, that's why I put it farther and farther away.
No, we have to allow, we have to make
Thank you,
sure.
Ray, for your comments, but my microphone, I don't think it's working either. Is it working?
It's working.
Okay,
So,
just
Ray,
make sure everybody,
You heard what I said.
Thank you, Ray.
thank you, make sure everybody please speaks into the microphone so anybody in the room can hear us and everybody watching
Chris,
can
could you
hear
get
us.
some bigger microphones, please?
Next week.
Okay.
Okay, would anybody else like to speak?
I would just like to invite Laura and Wolf. I'm not sure if you're here to speak about the tool library or just, you are on the agenda later under committee reports, but if you're here to talk about that, this would be the time.
No, she's actually here to talk about a recycling
Okay.
resolution the
I-
county passed.
I saw that.
And so she's here
Okay.
to speak to us about that,
Okay.
okay? So if there's no other public comment, I have a few announcements, and one is a very exciting announcement. Ulster County Transportation Council let us know today that our joint municipal application for the Safe Routes to a School Action Plan for the New Paltz Central Schools, the middle school in Disease, has been accepted as part of the council's Safe Route to School demonstration project. The Ulster County Transportation Committee staff will be in contact with your office shortly in order to discuss next steps. In consultation with you and village officials, you should begin identifying 3 to 4 individuals who represent the town and village on a technical advisory committee for this project. These representatives should have an intimate knowledge of the physical layout of the community and be familiar with your application, as well as the general concepts related to traffic safety, walkability, and the Safe Routes to School framework. It would be ideal if at least one of these individuals represent the interests of the New Paltz School District in an effort to facilitate communication with pertinent school officials and allow ease of access to school property for project staff if and when necessary. So we got this grant. It's very exciting. They only picked two grant applications in the entire county. And an awful lot of thanks needs to go to Bill Weinstein, Carol Connolly, and Kurt Lavala, who spent an awful lot of time working on this, pulling this together. We have a copy of the grant for anybody to look at, and I'll be asking, not tonight, but another time, who possibly from the board, or maybe individuals, possibly Bill Weinstein, or from the Bike Transportation Committee would like to serve. But it was very exciting. A lot of time and work was put into this. And it was around the hurricane that people were working on this, and it was great that we got accepted. And I do have copies, Mike, Michael? Here's a copy of the letter, so, and I have copies if any board members want. And if you don't want, I have copies. One for Rosanna? Okay. So, thank you, Bill Weinstein, Carol Connolly, and Kurt Lavala from the work that you did. The second announcement I have is from Nicholas Zapatowski.
Yes.
He was a young, Zapatowski. He was a young man who asked us to give him permission to build the dugouts out at Clearwater for his Eagle Scout project. So he wrote a letter to the town board. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to build dugouts for my Eagle Scout project. Without your encouragement and support, I would not have been successful in their completion. I'm happy with the way the dugouts turned out, and hopefully they will be used by generations of youth baseball for years to come. Attached are photos of the completed project. Thank you again for being a part of my Eagle Scout project. And I'll pass these around for the board members to look. It's very, very impressive, very professional. And thank you, Nick, for taking this project on. And on behalf of all the kids who play baseball in our community, they will be used. So those are the two announcements. I don't know if any board members have anything else they would like to add?
While you're doing announcements, so should we be looking to name some people to this?
No, I
or
think
do you wanna
we'll
kinda
talk about it and see,
Looks like-
if anybody on the board wants to do it.
Maybe forward this to Bike Ped Committee?
Well, I don't know, because I think they're asking for 4 from the community, and they're asking for 1 to be from the school. And we did it in consultation with the village, so the village might want Kurt. So I think what we could do is talk about who we would like to,
Kurt and, like,
I
Bike
could
Ped.
talk to you about it,
Yeah.
and we could figure it out, because you
I wonder if Alan
oversee,
would
are you
like,
the
yeah,
liaison to Bike
I
Ped?
just talked to Alan yesterday, so I'm
Okay.
wondering if this could be something
Yeah.
Alan may want to do.
So if it's okay with everybody, Jeff and I will figure it out, make the recommendations, and we'll go from there.
Is there anyone here that wants to do it?
Well, I'll go to the Transportation Implementation Committee meeting as my regular assignment next week and see who is going to volunteer. I'm pretty sure Kurt Lavala will be on it.
Mhm.
Bike Ped just had their meeting, so what I'll do is let me get hold of Alan and see if he or someone else on there would also be interested.
Good.
Okay.
But if no one else on this board is interested, I think we have some very highly qualified individuals in our
Yeah. I
committee.
suspect that Bill will want to be on it, because he worked really hard.
Yep,
So I would imagine Bill, Kurt, if they want somebody from the school, we could figure that out if the school wants to participate, and we'll just go from there. Okay, but, Jeff, we can figure that
you
out.
and I will talk.
Okay, okay, so with that, I'd like to invite Al Wegner up. You all got a copy of the
Yes.
scenic resource for the Shawangunk Mountain region, a guide for planning boards, and he's gonna take us through a quick presentation.
Yeah.
Does
Wanna
Al
see-
need
wanna
one-
see
does
Al?
Al need your mic or one of them?
Oh, yeah, turn,
Can we give him?
Feel free, Al.
have at it.
Okay, thanks very much. If you turn on the inside front cover, you will see a map of the Shawangunk Mountains region. And the orange, kind of orange colored line indicates the scenic byway. It's a 88-mile route that goes from Bullville down in Orange County in the town of Crawford, up as far north as Stone Ridge or town of Marbletown, goes from New Paltz from the freeway exit over to Ellenville, in effect encircles mountains. The byway was designated by the state of New York by the work of people from all 11 municipalities who submitted a corridor management plan to the state and it was designated in 2006 by act of the state legislature and the governor. And then was amended to include this 4455 little route through the hamlet of Gardner in 2009. The byway is managed by a unincorporated organization made up of all 11 municipalities. The elected official, the chief elected official of all 10 of the 11 municipalities serve on a board of directors. The one exception is the town of Crawford, where the supervisor is a part-time job. And so the head of the planning board, Phil Jameson, represents the town of Crawford. In New Paltz, the town is represented by your supervisor, who is, in addition to being a representative of the town, is also a representative of Wallkill Valley. And she's a vice chair of our Board of Representatives. In the Roanoke Valley side, the vice chair there is Carl Shipman in the town of Rochester. And I'm really pleased to say that the supervisors are really good at coming to the meetings, which are not often, but they show up and they enjoy each other's company and they influence each other and exchange information very well. The byway has been successful in getting funding. The funding is provided through the Federal Highway Administration. A match is required. It's an 80-20 match. And Senator Bonacek has been very helpful in regard to providing that match through the Department of Economic Development or OPRHP. Usually that match, at his request, is administered by the Mohawk Preserve. He feels he likes the way they do that. We have gained a regional open space plan, which unfortunately came out in 2008, which was just the year that the economy went down. And instead of people talking about open space, they were talking about open jobs. And but we did speak to Senator Bonacek about a real estate transfer fee, and at least we exchanged some views on it. Let's put it that way. We have a website, which I think you may have seen. It's one of the best websites you're going to see anywhere. And we're working on how to expand that to create an app for the whole Shango Mountains region. If we could figure out how to do the funding on that properly. We also, as Susan announced, and it's been very well received every place I have gone, a $1 million grant to upgrade the scenic overlooks, and I'm really pleased to have done that. People are more excited about it than I thought they ever would be, but it's something that's really well received. And we have just finished producing this guide for planning boards. The byway was designated on the basis of scenic, recreational, natural, and historic resources. And one of the first things we did was submit application for funding that would help planning boards understand the different possibilities for providing for development while still minimizing the impact of that development on the scenic resources. The purpose is not to discourage development. The purpose is to help guide it with information and ideas on how to do that in the way to interrupt scenic resources at a minimum. There are no rules in here. There are no regulations in here. There are no standards in here. It's strictly conceptual and strictly at the choice of the municipality in terms of how they want to use it and whether they want to use it and to what degree. And that's why I'm talking to you rather than to your planning board. And I've done this in all the municipalities now except one. Last night I spoke to the village board about it, and each municipality tailors its use to its own particular need. Just to go through it real briefly, there's an explanation of what is a scenic resource up here on page 14, I think it is, no, 11, and it explains that that there are designated resources, federal and state resources, and New Paltz is one of the few towns that has an inventory of scenic resources as part of your open space plan. Also, town and village designated resources and the resources that are important but are not designated. We speak about visualization assessment tools on page 13. All the tools that planning boards might use to help them visualize the impact that a development may have on the scenic resources, so as to help adjust those resources in ways that might be creative and innovative so as to lessen the impact. And then because this is such a big area of scenic, and there's so many different types of scenery that are important to people, we define the area by the different landscape patterns that are in the area. And that you can see on page 19, where we talk about the patterns being forested lands, or agricultural lands, or rural residential lands. And the purpose for that is that the practices to minimize the impact of development are different depending on on what those patterns are. And the issues related to the patterns are different. As you can see, if you go to page 43, when we list all these practices, things that can be done according to the pattern to minimize the impact of the development on basically the context of the parcel. And they include a lot of things that are well known, and we are not representing this as being new ideas at all, but are very handy and well organized, we hope, and simple, easy to understand way for planning board to educate developers as to what is possible, and a way to track it as they go through that. The publication ends with some additional resources. We've included a lot of individual shots of local practices, many of them from the town, as you'll recognize in the back, including one that I think is amazing, how the town of Shawangam, actually on page 88, you'll see it in the middle there, where to accommodate a 3-story building that would be blocking view of the mountains, the developer put in a massive berm that in effect will shield the building is right behind it, and it shields the building from the view of the mountains along a road that's very important in the town of Shawangam. So that's it. That's what it is, and it's been very well received in the towns where I presented it. It has had input by our board of directors, by a great deal by the consultant we hired in Middlebury, Vermont, a landscape architectural firm. We have met with all the planning boards. We met with Mike, with Dave Plowser, with George Lithgow. There was a meeting here in which people who were interested in the scenic views of New Paltz attended and gave us input. And we met with the heads of the planning boards and in some cases planning boards in all of the municipalities and reviewed the draft with them. So we hope that the town of New Paltz will find use for this, and we hope it's a benefit to the planning board.
And I guess, Al, I have a question. One is, and I did read through
Oh,
it,
good.
and Susan thought she had last year hard work, but I will remind her of the hard work, and I'm sure Kitty will remind her too. We still don't have
Sounds
our...
like I'm getting more work put on me.
You absolutely are. The master plan is still not complete.
Mhm.
And as I was reading through this, and one thing our planning board has become excellent at is, and I know you're active in it too, is the balloon testing,
Mhm.
where larger buildings were flying balloons and then going out and taking pictures from some of the most important vistas that we've all identified.
Right.
And they're not always exclusively vistas that are in New Paltz. There are vistas that are in Rochester, there are vistas that are in Gardner.
And on the
Take it-
ridge.
And on the ridge, which
Yeah.
is town of Rochester, Gardner, and
Right.
back. Do you know, can we take this plan and envelope it into our draft master plan that we, just to make Kitty sad, that we paid a large sum of money for and yet still have not adopted yet, and include that in our master plan and then use this to help guide our current zoning?
I'll say that George Lithgow has attended 2 of our meetings. We met with him and one of his partners in his law firm and to discuss things with him on this. And then he attended a big meeting in Rosendale, and he and I have chatted. He's very familiar with this. He has ideas on how it can be used by the town. So I would really suggest that you refer this. What you might do is to vote, if you feel so inclined, to vote to accept it as a board. Refer it to your planning board and ask for their recommendation in terms of its use.
That's what that's why I was as I was reading through it, I saw, and I don't know, Kitty, if you've read most of it, I know you've read most of it
That
too.
makes
There's
a lot of sense.
there's huge sections of it that say exactly
microphone.
what happened, and I know Susan.
Microphone, take your microphone back.
And I'm sorry, Susan, there were meetings before you were elected, but I know
Sure.
there were meetings you were at, 'cause I remember seeing you at meetings out at BOCES when we were all putting little stickers on maps. I remember seeing you there, putting stickers on maps.
Thank you for remembering.
I remember who was there. You weren't elected yet. You were, as a county rep, you were putting little stickers on maps. And there's huge parts of this that speak to some of the vistas that
Right.
we hold very dear here. So I'm wondering, I mean, one, I have I have no problem at all of us accepting it, but I'm wondering, I guess then we need to speak to George Lithgow, is how do we also roll this into being, I would like to roll this whole report into part of our master plan, because huge parts of this are what our community has told us they want in our master plan.
Well, I think that if we accept this and then send it to the planning board with a request for their opinion about whether or not they would like to adopt these principles as planning principles, I think we would have taken a giant step forward to implementing some of the wishes and hopes of our community that are still dormant because we don't have a master plan. I think that makes some sense.
I mean, no questions, but I want to hear Chris, but, I mean, either.
Who paid for this?
This was paid for by a grant from the Federal Highway Administration and by the New York State Department of Economic Development.
If you go a couple pages in,
Okay,
there's a
so-
list of.
This was,
Kevin, move the microphone just so,
this was prepared for the partnership, at the partnership's request,
Yes,
in order to attempt to guide planning principles throughout the whole region.
in order to be of service to planning boards.
Okay.
I mean, I'm not broad with it.
All right. And what I see here really is it's really a visual planning. A lot of it's visual.
It's related to the preservation of the scenic values. yeah.
well, remember, Kevin, this is a scenic byway,
No, I
so.
understand that. I understand that, but what
Corridor
we,
management plan, let me get
what
back
we,
to it.
what we really need to do, and what we really need to be careful about, is these are all great ideas. There's no question about it. But the question is, in the implementation of these ideas, what does it do in the real world? So I noticed that you see some of
I
these
can answer-
projects with
I think I can
these
answer.
cobblestone
Right, right. Yeah.
curb cuts. Do you know what happens to, a lot of town planning boards have required developers to put the cobblestones in along the roadways? Well, guess what happens when you plow the roads?
Mhm.
It tears up all the cobblestone.
Yeah.
So you have some of these things that are incorporated into plans, but in the real world, they don't always work, and a lot of times they'll drive up the cost of a project,
Yeah.
so that then you drive the project out of town. I want somebody to take this and make this a model visual community that's affordable. That's the key. It's great to live in a beautiful place, but you have to be able to afford to live here. So I think we need a bigger discussion about how we can accomplish that, and that's really our goal. Our goal should be to look at what we have now and plan out how we're gonna raise the revenue so that we can implement plans like this, which really is to put the value of the environment and the vistas ahead of development. And I'm okay with that, as long as we have enough development that will pay for the cost of all the services that we have in the community. And I've talked about this before, and I pointed to that map before, and I'm fine with open space. I'm fine with the fact that we have half the land west of the Walk Hill already protected. But at the same time, as that area grows bigger and bigger, we lose tax revenue. So now the burden is on the remaining people. And if we lose more land, then that's a bigger burden on the remaining people. So I think there should be a whole section in this book about how you accomplish all this in a kind of an economic way too. You know, this is
Kevin, let me-
great, this is great.
I got you. Let me mention, we have 11 municipalities in this parish. Some of them have, well, the village has conditions very similar to the town here. But there are other municipalities that are very different. So we as a partnership, by our very nature, by the nature of who we are as representing all 11 municipalities with the heads of the municipalities being our board, we can't do something that tries to be a master plan for 11
But
municipalities.
see, you're offering this as a master plan for
No,
11
excuse me.
municipalities
Excuse
when
me,
it
no.
comes to the planning of the community. And I'm
Yeah.
fine with that.
Right.
But I want more money spent on how you accomplish that in an affordable way.
I need to just interject here.
Yeah,
To
thanks.
say, this really addresses the scenic vistas component of planning. And in that sense, we don't have a regional design for that. And if all of our communities sign on to saying we are going to aim for, if there's new construction, earth tones or citing the new buildings in a way that it blends in with the landscape rather than compromises the view shed, we are going to retain a significant economic tool in our region, which is scenic tourism. And Kevin, I am convinced that in the next year, I will convince you that every acre of open space is the best tax value we can ever get. And the minute you put a house on it, our taxes go up. So you look at this map and you see undeveloped land and you think that if it were developed, our taxes
No,
would go down.
I'm not saying that. I'm fine with that space being what it is. I'm fine with that.
Because it doesn't cost us anything.
But it should be generating some revenue for the town as well. We have to figure out ways to drive additional revenue. Because the other night, we're at this joint town and village meeting, and Susan speaks up to the fact that here we are, we're cutting benefits for employees because we have to, okay? And we have to do that because we don't have the revenue to offset all these increases. And I just don't want to see our potential development possibilities be further restricted.
I understand.
And
but the end
increase
of
the
that sentence,
cost.
Kevin, honestly is, we don't have the revenue to pay for the services that all of our development requires. That's the reality. You know, there's study after study that for every dollar in revenue that you get from a new development, it costs $1.37
But-
in taxes.
But I agree with you, Kitty, but when you say new development is gonna be new development, and it's not gonna be what you've seen before. That's old development. It doesn't work. It's too expensive.
Okay.
The homes are too
Agreed.
big, they're not efficient. It's gonna be new development, and I think that, I appreciate the work, but I have a feeling that this is a singular perspective being passed into the planning processes of all the towns, and almost in a way capturing the motivation, the thinking of the town, and the town doesn't really have to think for themselves anymore, they just have it passed through to them in a way. But there's a bigger piece that also has to be, this can't be the only piece, there has to be another piece. And that's all I'm saying.
And I think, Kevin, you're absolutely right, and I think it makes it worthwhile to sit and read the 90 pages or so that this does encompass. And to what Kitty is speaking to make new Paltz, and in a simpler way, we all live here for two big items in this community. And one is the university provides a huge resource to this community, and the other one is everything that's west of the Wallkill. So every single acre that's open west of the Wallkill is why we're here. Now, if you do read through this, there is a big planning and design practice piece. Al is not sitting here telling us to take it and this is now going to become our new
Right.
planning code. Because we all, and you agree, you know, the era of taking 30 acres and putting up 5 houses, big
30
mansions,
houses. Forget about it.
is gone.
Go on.
But you can still take that 30 acres, develop it. There's actually some very interesting ideas in here that are being enacted where you can actually do density housing, does not affect your viewscape, does not involve a dead end. It involves them sharing septic systems, involves them sharing services. It has a small road that has very little impact that goes in from, lack of a better word, the main access road and comes back out, and yet does not affect your viewscape, provides, to your point, people are no longer building 3,500, 4,200 square foot homes. We're now back to that era where we're building 2,100 square foot homes, 1,900 square.
Right.
And this actually does speak to that, and
Well, let me
how to
ask-
do it on the same land and yet still protect what, you know, people come to New Paltz for, Main Street's a parking lot for a reason on weekends. It's what's west of the Wallkill, it's that view shed, it's the acre that Kitty just spoke of. It's that, those are the areas that are important to us, and there will be development out there. And what can we best do to protect those view sheds,
Yeah.
and yet still generate revenue, and the developers can generate the most
I-
dollars out of their,
I know,
out of their
but
development.
there's very little land west of the Wallkill right now that can be developed. There's just a fact, very little. You know, you take out the farm properties, you take out all the wet properties, there's very little land. I don't see any development going out there ever. And so my point is, we have some development out there, but that development is paying a huge amount into the town in the form of tax dollars, a huge amount. And each time another parcel comes off, it's just like the parcel that's being picked up. We might lose $150,000 or $200,000 of tax revenue. We can't afford to do that.
Well, if you look at, we have a very progressive tax system in our town, which says that, you know, if you, the house is 90% of your taxes, and the open space around it is successively lower. And so if you have a big parcel of land and it's assessed at $500,000, probably 450,000 of that is your house. And so if we do take more, and by the way, this plan does not propose
That's
taking any land
That's right.
out of development.
No, I know.
But
I
under your
understand.
scenario, if that were to occur, the loss of revenue is very small, because, as we've said before, the house is the primary generator of revenue.
I'm just, you know, I'm not gonna belabor this, but I'm just, it's, I don't know what the answer is. I've talked about the not-for-profits paying some kind of a
That's a
fee.
very
Okay.
different
And
and
that's,
very
and that's,
important
and we,
discussion.
we actually, I have something
Okay?
that,
And we
Yeah,
have to,
that's an important
because,
discussion to
look,
have.
if
That's
what we're
not this-
doing is,
Okay.
as a community, what we're really doing is paying for west of the Wallkill to be in the state that it's in.
A lot of people would argue that they're subsidizing us.
They're subsidizing us.
They don't cost us anything. Those hundreds of acres of open space and farmland don't send children to our schools and
But it
don't
takes-
have
okay,
bar
anyway, you know what,
fights.
I gotta stop now though, because we have a whole meeting ahead of us. We have other stuff to do.
Okay.
What Al is presenting is there is a scenic byway that is more than just New Paltz. It covers a large area, it's been designated, and this is a guide to the communities that are part of the scenic byway, that as they go forward in the future, how to look at development in a way that protects that viewshed. And its purpose is to be a guide to planning boards. So with that, I would like to make a recommendation that we take this, we forward it to our planning board, we ask our planning board to look at it, give us recommendations back of how they would like to incorporate this, assess this, incorporate it, and then we can come back and we can put it on the agenda for another time to talk to at length. But I think we have to close the conversation down at this point, if that's okay with the board.
Well,
Okay.
can I ask you a
Sure.
question?
Please.
Okay, so if we
But you
forward
need to
it,
use my microphone.
okay, so if we forward it to the planning board, can we ask them, what are their suggestions for design standards, just standards, not rules, not laws, design standards in the town of New Paltz that the planning board would like to apply to future planning projects. The Village of New Paltz Planning Board has design standards, and I think.
And I'm sorry, Gene, just so you know, standards of design is something they've been discussing, and just so you know, I totally agree with you. This does not really speak too much to standards of design, but just so you know, I completely agree with you. We do need it in our planning process, but I don't think this is the document we want to include standards of design in.
Nope, I'm not, then I'm talking about something different.
You are.
Because what I'm talking, there's so much important stuff in here that with a new development, how you sit the house, where you put the utility lines, how you combine the utility lines rather than having 3 separate utility lines running, where you set up your trash collection. There's so many very small modifications that on a site plan could be very, very important to all of New Paltz and the future development. And it doesn't have to be west of the Wallkill. It can be just outside of the village where we still have developable parcels. So in that manner, I think that this is a beautiful document, and I do think that our planning board should look at it, but I think I'm talking about something different than Jeff.
So Susan, is your motion to accept it, or are we just passing it through?
Well, I mean, I'm willing to accept it, but I get the feeling that Kevin might want to look through this. I'm not quite sure.
I
mean, we can accept it. I mean, you know, it was brought to us, we got it. It's just like we've accepted stuff on the consolidation without whether agreeing with it or
No,
not.
What is
but
the
this
status
is
of
a
this with
very-
the other towns?
Honey?
What is the status of this with the other towns? Do they just like say thank you, or do they have a formal motion to accept it, or what has been
The village last night voted to accept it and to refer it to their planning board for comment, and with the intention of adopting it. And just how they were gonna adopt it and how it fits in with their overall scheme, I don't know.
okay?
That's, the town of Shangam may do the same thing, but at the discussion that they had when I presented it like this, they were thinking of it primarily that when a developer comes to their building department for an application, you know, to fill out, to do a plan, that they would refer the developer to this.
Right.
Mhm.
And it's available on our website, and you can have materials so it can be on your website. And to be prepared to discuss this with the planning board.
So would
So
that
it
mean
can
if
be
I,
used.
if I had a piece of land which was on the hilltop, and I wanted to put my house on the top of the hill, is somebody gonna say, no, you gotta put it
No.
below the?
No,
peak of the
no.
hill?
The tone of this, and quite honestly,
This
I've been
isn't
very,
zoning.
I've been
This
very
isn't zoning,
particular
no,
about
so-
the tone of it.
Okay.
These are ideas. These are thoughts on how to develop without ruining the scenic views. It doesn't tell a developer anything he has to do. Now, a planning board can say, we want you to do this. But the idea here is not to say what you have to do. And believe me, there were 5 versions of this, some of them were 10 pages longer, that had a lot of that in it. But because of the nature of this organization,
How much input did you get from each of the supervisors in preparing this report?
I had 3 meetings. We had several meetings that were done
Put your hand
together
down.
as a group. And then I met with our consultants, and this was driven by our consultant in Vermont.
So it's driven by the consultant and shared with the town supervisors.
No, first we got information from the supervisors and from their planning boards. We had a meeting here at that time with Tony Hokinson and with Mike, and it was advertised for the public participation in it. Alan Stout was there, Carol Lee was there, a few other people were there.
I was
to
the
get
only
their-
person from the public there, actually. With respect to that, Carol Lee was there, but she was representing, I believe, the Nature Conservancy. Seth was there representing
No, it wasn't.
one
It
of
wasn't.
the other.
It wasn't. No, excuse me, that's not
Okay.
correct.
That is absolutely
You
true.
may be
Okay.
thinking of a different meeting, perhaps.
Okay,
Um,
right now Al has the floor, so keep going.
Yeah.
So,
So we met with them. We met with, back again with planning boards. The head of the planning board, Rosendale, wanted to review this with his whole planning board. So we posted it on the website. He was able to download it from the website, so it went to that. You know, we got input from each of the towns and from their planning boards. And the purpose being to present ideas, to present possibilities for the planning board and the developer to consider. It is not, there are no standards in here.
Right.
There are no rules, there are no feet of setback or any of that. This is meant to provide ideas, and I believe that's all it does.
But these ideas have been well thought out. These are well thought out ideas.
why would somebody want to
I
present
think
not
they
well thought
are
out
well
ideas?
thought out.
They are
best
not,
practices.
there are ideas in here that some people would differ with. But I would say that overall, I believe they're well thought out. The draft has been reviewed, several drafts have been reviewed by the board, and there've been problems with some of it, and we've changed it. But with something like this, there's always differences of opinion, because it's a matter of where judgment enters in, and judgment is what the planning board provides.
I see this as well thought out, but representing a particular perspective on things. There may be other perspectives, and those perspectives maybe should develop their own report as well. So I'm a little concerned about accepting this right now.
Okay.
Maybe we should just
It's a
vote it down.
perspective, it's a perspective of our Board of Representatives, which is represented by each of the towns, by their supervisor, or in one case, the exception I made.
Okay, Chris does want to say something, and I'm going to just say something really quick. From the perspective of, we don't have to accept it, we could refer it, it's not a problem, but I just want to point out, Kevin, that the supervisors that are along the byway represent a lot of different towns, and some of the towns on the other side of the mountain have very different design standards, have very different zoning, have very different communities, than New Paltz. So to get supervisors from all of these towns and all of these to agree on what they believe the standards could be as a recommendation to protect the view shed, I guess the way to say it is, this doesn't necessarily represent New Paltz's point of view. You've got other supervisors, other planning boards with totally divergent perspectives of what they believe about zoning and planning and politics than New Paltz, but they all came to consensus of how they felt the ideas to protect the view shed that we all share is what ends up being the result of this. And so therefore, if this was done by the supervisors of New Paltz, maybe Gardner, a few other towns, I would probably venture to say this might be a completely, totally different document.
Right.
So
See,
I think some of your
and I've
concerns
looked at-
are,
I've looked at the history of how the byway was formed, who the principal people were behind this.
we were the first town to actually,
You were the
when I was the
right, you
supervisor, we
were.
were the first
But
town to
this
become a
was brought-
byway
This was brought to all the supervisors,
through the years.
and it was brought in order to educate those supervisors about a particular perspective that an organized group of people found to be important.
Absolutely, it was
Right.
started as,
Well,
an-
and that's my point.
but no,
Kitty,
but
I'm
the,
okay. But it was an organized group of people with a certain perspective that actually started
Right.
this byway and encouraged all
That's
the
right.
supervisors to participate. I know the history. I looked at the history. So I'm saying to everybody here tonight that if you're gonna drive this perspective in this area, you have to drive it in an economic way. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, and to that point, I would just say that regional planning is the number one goal of the New York State Planning Federation. This is a giant step forward. Yesterday at the Chamber of Commerce, I would say 50% of the speakers are from the tourism industry. And this kind of regional planning is what the mom and pop
And I'm-
and bed and
Believe
breakfasts
me, Kitty,
need.
I'm with you on this. You don't believe me.
Okay.
I'm with you on it, but if you take what we have west of
Okay,
the
I think
Walk
I'm,
Hill and consider it as a magnet for tourism,
Mhm.
okay, and I'm just gonna make an analogy, like Disney World is a magnet for tourism in
Mhm.
Florida, okay? At least down there, they're getting some revenue from that operation. We're not getting revenue from the tourist operation that we have in place that we're
Well,
all paying to
That's a very
maintain.
And-
different
Okay, anyway,
argument,
I really do have
but
to-
we
I have
are
to stop this.
supporting jobs and
Okay.
farms and Walker View Farm and lots of jobs for our kids. I've been waiting for this, not quite as long as you have. We've had documents like this before. We had a habitat assessment guideline that was prepared by the Metropolitan Conservation Association, I think I'm right, Michael Kingman, whatever his name. And so,
Hudsonia speaking?
Hudsonia was part of it, but it was the Metropolitan Conservation Association. They actually
Oh,
went to
right, right,
people's backyards and did habitat assessment. And we have, they got permission.
Okay.
Okay, I gave them permission, my neighbor didn't. So we have adopted guidelines in the past as a town board, and then pass them on to the planning board to accept, to modify, to use as a guide if they wish to take parts of it, but it is not zoning. It is, does not
understand
become
that.
law.
I understand that, but, and I'm gonna make this last point. Let's assume, because of the economics for people that live west of the Walk Hill, they can't afford to live there anymore. And their property is bought up by a not-for-profit. Now, the remaining people on the east side of the Walk Hill have to pay that $4 million police budget every year. By themselves.
Okay, so anyway, we're not gonna solve that problem tonight. I have an editorial on my table up
Do you have
there
something you want
that
to-
has to talk about tax exemptions and all that kind of stuff, which we could tackle, which is really the bigger issue.
Well, I would
So
like to
let's,
put
I
this
would like
on
to
the
just ask,
agenda
I would
for
like just for
action
Chris to
tonight.
say something, and then we're gonna wrap it up. Okay, so
Thanks for
Chris,
giving me that opportunity.
Oh.
I'll be as brief as possible. Again, I think like what everybody is saying, I think that, a lot of the ideas within, this pamphlet, seem like good ideas. Actually, some of them don't seem like they go far enough in some respects. But for me, I think what really concerns me is, this is not coming from, our townspeople, and if you look, if you've read this, which I have, I've read it cover to cover, I read the earlier version of this as well, which was probably 3 times as thick. You're talking about things like, house design and house placement in lands and where to place houses and driveway length and, all of these sort of design aspects that's now going to the planning board. It seems like instead of having 11 supervisor municipalities kind of discuss this, that this should really be a town by town issue. And once it starts getting out of that and becomes sort of this, this pamphlet that was designed and then brought to the town. I mean, once you have an external group, that is bringing ideas to the town, while this idea may be great, the next one may not. And I mean, for what it's worth, I believe Mr. Wegner is paid by the Mohonk Preserve. I believe his paycheck comes from there. And that may be a group that is kind of, guiding this at the moment. But what happens when it's, somebody like, a fracking company or something like that, and all of a sudden, there's another, sort of lobbyist for one of these groups who's saying, we should really, push the planning of the town for those sorts of things. I just think that the townspeople, the tax-paying townspeople should be deciding, how our town is to move forward, and not, non-tax-paying citizens, and certainly not lobbyist groups. I think that that's what's important. So for me, it's comforting to know that, that you're quote on the board of this non-partnership partnership that's not filed with the state, you know, but, you know, for a taxpaying citizen, it's kind of like, well, you know, what does this really represent, you know? And I would feel more comfortable if all of the taxpayers came in and said, this is how, and I believe we have that with our master plan, this is how we want the town to proceed, not, you know, this is how some extraneous organizations or organization wants the town to proceed.
Okay, so just a quick comment, a couple quick comments, just to, Al does not get paid as the executive director of the byway, so he volunteers his time and he's not paid.
You don't get a paycheck from the Mohawk
Oh, that's not
Reserve?
100% true?
No.
Okay, I'm
No.
sorry.
He is-
You
No,
get paid through
as
the,
as I explained to the board when I spoke on behalf of the Mohawk Preserve for a grant, I explained what the arrangement was. It's also explained on page 7 here, when it refers to the match funding that was gained by, provided by Senator Bonacek. The funding for this came from the Federal Highway Administration and administered by the town of Shongam, and from the Department of Economic Development, administrated by the Mohawk Preserve. In my work on this over 3 years, I have received funds, and some of those funds, per the arrangement which Senator Bonacek made with the Mohawk Preserve, that has come to me on a check by the Mohawk Preserve. Now, what that means is that the Mohawk Preserve has acted as a bank for this. I will say that on this project, the Mohawk Preserve has had minimal influence on it, minimal impact, minimal review of anything.
they were passed through.
Pardon?
They were technically a pass-through.
Custodian
Yeah,
of the
that's
funds.
what it
Custodians
is.
of the funds.
You need a
what it is.
custodial for funds.
Now,
Right.
because of the way the funding is done, it's reimbursement funding, which means that we have to have an administrative sponsor that will lay out the money for those invoices to be billed to the Department of Transportation, so that the town or the Mohawk Preserve gets reimbursed for that. We cannot form a corporate incorporated partnership because we'd have to have a bank to be able to put out the money to then get reimbursement for. So the group that formed the byway, which was in addition to the 11 municipalities, included the Chamber of Commerce, included Ulster County Planning, Orange County Planning, was approved by Ulster County Planning and Orange County Planning, and others, felt that it would be foolish to set up a nonprofit organization, do all the tax work on it. We had no money to use for the banking function in regard to getting grants.
But this looks very similar to what I've seen the Preserve prepare. in
No, this
terms
is
of-
very similar to our corridor management plan, and in the corridor management plans, we speak about the scenic resources in the region. We inventory them, and we present plans for their preservation, plans for preserving, because New York State was not going to designate a byway that is going to be ruined within a couple of years.
But
This
We need
guide for
Do.
planning
the
boards
agenda.
was included in the corridor management plan. It's the same typeface, it is not the Mohawk Preserve
but
type.
it's.
So what
Okay.
I'd like to do is, I'd like to make a motion that the town board accept the scenic resources in the Shawangunk Mountain region presentation as presented, and to forward it to the town planning board for review.
Do I have a second to that
I
motion?
will second that.
Give me a second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna say no, because I feel that policy is being driven by a not-for-profit organization, a non-tax-paying organization.
Okay, I just, to wrap up, I just want to say one thing, Chris, real quick. No outside group is driving the zoning of the community, and,
Not yet.
you know, it's an organizational structure to, anyway, okay, so anyway, with that, okay,
And as the
Alan,
last piece is, could you
let's-
please say it again, where can people view this?
Oh, it's on our website.
About, could just say again, where it
Yeah,
can be
the-
viewed?
the link
So it
would
is
be,
available online.
www.mtn, short for mountain, scenicbyway.org.
Thank you
And
very much.
look under the partnership tab, and you'll see it says Guide for Planning Boards.
And if anyone wants to just simply Google Schwangunk
If you Google-
resource and byway.
Google
it-
Shamgar, it'll be on the first page.
It shows up on the first page. If you put in Schwangunk resource and byway, it shows up within the first 3 searches, so.
So now we're gonna move on to the next subject,
Thank
which,
you.
Thank
no,
you.
well,
No,
Al's
he's
not
gonna-
leaving.
Al,
The trees
true
now.
resident.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
the trees.
as a- just a
Thank you
quick-
so much, though, Al, for that.
Thank you.
As a quick little aside, I have to say the one benefit of coming back a second time is you get to do what you didn't do the first time. So when I was here in '96 to '99, I had this dream and vision of putting trees up and down Main Street to soften the impact when you come into the community and when you sort of drive in, and if you look to the right and the left and you see candy beverages and you look at, Midas Mufflin, whatever, it's actually funny when we're talking about like development and things. When you come down 84, where the Big Gap warehouse is, it's amazing because it's an absolutely beautiful drive down, and then you get to the Gap warehouse. There's no trees. It's a massive parking lot and tons and tons and tons of trucks. If there were just trees lining the corridor, it would have such less of an impact, and it would not be so jarring just if there were trees. And so I used to always sort of feel driving down that if there were trees, it would make a big difference in the community. Never got to really act on it in my first term of office and second term of office. So coming back, I sort of thought, here's an opportunity to do something that I believed in. Had a conversation with Al, had a conversation with Jim Littlefoot. Al went from the conversation that we had over to the DEC to someone he could talk about at some meeting he went to, where this was really embraced and it's gotten to a whole other level. And it's really, really excitingly personally for me, and I hope for the community. So I'd like to turn over to Al, what is behind this and what you need us to do today.
To try to conserve your time, I'm going to try to go to the quickest route, and then I'll be glad to answer any questions you might have about
There's
how to
copies
get
of the resolution if anybody wants to see. Pass them around if you want.
To re-tree Main Street requires being able to plant trees beyond the right-of-way. The right-of-way being, and Chris is here, he can talk more about that. But it's the immediate area about 10 feet from the curb. Because of the interference of utility lines, there's very little space. And because the town highway people want room to be able to put snow. And so the opportunities for planting trees in that confined area are very little. To go beyond that into what is private property requires a consideration of that. And requires the towns to realize the public benefits of trees. In other words, the town can't very well, and Susan provided that I was able to talk to Joe Moriello on this, but a town can't spend money enhancing private property. But what a town can do is to invest in doing things that have a public benefit. And what I've tried to do, and what has caught the interest of so many people, is to enumerate the public benefits of trees that would be planted in that way. The way to do it would be to have the state recognize the public benefits of trees planted just outside of the right-of-way. What this will do by your agreeing to this, passing this resolution, it will enable the Association of Towns Resolution Committee to meet, I think it's the first week in February, and to consider this resolution and to decide whether they want to recommend it to their membership at their meeting in early February, probably in
February 22nd.
after that. And in order to get this on the Association of Towns schedule for projects for the year, that's the route they go through. It starts here. Then the Association of Towns would take the lead in terms of doing the lobbying necessary and involve others in it in order to have the state realize that planting trees, street trees, just outside the right of way. I'm not talking about putting trees on, right up against somebody's house or something like that. That should be allowed in the state. Doing that will release funds. It comes from the federal government to the state for use for street trees. There is several hundreds of $1,000s each year that the state uses to subsidize or support tree plantings, a lot of it in cities. But the restriction is cannot be planted outside of the right of way. So what this would do is bring about a change in the position of the state on that, recognizing the value, the public value of trees just outside the right. And-
What does the word authorize mean? When it says to authorize municipal street tree planting, does that mean that the municipality may? What if the homeowner objects?
Well, those are other things that will have to be worked out. And that would be worked out by the town. In other words, there needs, and I agree with this very much, there needs to be some conditions put on that.
Like new
How-
sidewalks
Pardon me?
and a wider right-of-way.
Like, well, I don't know
Like-
about
Well,
that.
no, part of it, what it is having to create, it's sort of starting the foundation for, to open the door, and then the town can create a mechanism, correct me if I'm wrong, to then go to all the private landowners, for them to give us almost like an easement to be able to plant this tree, and so it's not talking about takings, it's not,
Right.
all of a sudden having us have the right to go to a, private property and just say, okay, now we have the right to plant. It's starting the process to recognize the importance of trees, to get the state to start making it, a little bit easier, and then the town would undertake a plan of how we start approaching the people where we want to plant the trees and create some kind of private-public partnership to
You
allow
know
us to
what,
do this.
And I think a really quick answer, and not to make this longer.
Sure.
But Al, if you could just share, Al is the one who helped a developer, Lent Farms. If you just give a quick
Right.
story on that.
Right,
How much, you went and met with each homeowner.
Yeah.
And if you could just give us
Right.
your experiences on that.
Oh, they were just overjoyed, most.
No, I know
Yeah,
they
so,
were, but.
so that's what this is going to be,
Right.
though. We're looking
Who,
at,
who maintains the trees once they're planted?
Those are maintained by the property.
Okay, but
The-
in
the
this
land.
scenario, would it be
This-
maintained by
This,
Chris Martin's
thi-
crews?
this has to be worked out. Those are good questions, and they have to be worked out.
but that's why I
There
wanted your
are-
Lent
there are
experience, though.
questions- There are
But once you
questions in
explain,
regard to liability, there
Yeah.
are questions regard to maintenance.
but it increases the property value of.
All this,
Yeah.
all this does is it takes away the present state restriction on doing it. It does not go beyond that.
Doesn't say
we-
that you shall,
we-
it
you
says
can't-
may.
So what you're
Yeah.
trying to do is you're trying to get to certain revenue that would be available if we could convince our property owners along Main Street to allow us to plant.
Yeah.
And then we'd have to figure out how we would fund a revenue line to do maintenance on those trees, or whatever, going forward.
Whatever maintenance. Well, if that's the way it's done, it could be done so that
Unless the
the property owner
is
maintains it.
responsible for the tree.
There's
They
a
just get
lot
it
of
for free.
questions with how to do this.
Right.
Okay.
You're bringing up some, I talked to George Lithgow about it, he brought up 50, But to get it, right now, nobody's interested in talking about it, because as soon as you go, because when we talked to Joe Moriello, Joe said you can't do it, it's against the Constitution. And that's based on the idea of not realizing the public benefit of this,
So-
of planting these trees.
Are we seeking permission to seek funding for tree planting outside of the right of way?
Not at this point,
Then
no, not, all.
I'm getting back to Kitty's point.
What
about
we're
the
doing
language.
here, what this is doing here is is starting the ball rolling with the Association of Towns. It's something that they require in order to be considered. Once they consider it becomes their resolution, it's a resolution of the Association of Towns. This is, you are, as a member of the Association of Towns, by taking this action, in effect saying, we would like you guys to do this as a action of the association.
Let me just step back for a second. If we wanted to as a community,
Mhm.
okay, just say, we're gonna draft our own law.
Right,
Right now, we're not allowed to, a municipality can't go outside of the right of way and plant a tree.
Right.
There's no legal way to, even if you got the landowner to agree,
right.
okay? So,
The local law would require you to, in effect, base it on these same conditions. The local law would, in effect, be justified, this would be the rationale for the local law.
so I
And
mean,
if you did that, you wouldn't have to do anything with the state.
so technically, we could, as a community, create a local law, giving us the mechanism to entertain going to private property owners and saying, would you enter an agreement with the town to allow us to plant on your property?
If you
Rather than-
pointed
wait,
out,
wait,
if
wait.
you,
Rather than all this hypothetical stuff, I would like to give this a chance to be reviewed and cogitated and legalized by the Association
Well,
of
that was the
Towns.
point that I was gonna
Let's
get.
let them
this is
spend
their
the money and the
recommendation.
time.
Well, that's the point.
So
is-
let's pass this so that it can be brought up at the Association of Towns, and we don't have to spend our lawyers and
That
our
was the point
time.
that I was gonna get to.
So,
Was the
um,
fact that it's, the point was that
Let's
this
do
started,
that.
that this started as something we were gonna work on.
Right.
Al was able to bring it to get the attention of the state DEC, the Association of Towns. They said, we're really interested in this, we'd like to give our lawyers to you to help you put this together and take it up to the state. And so that's why Al is now coming back to us with this resolution, because everybody paid so much attention to when Al brought it to a meeting, that they said, we'd like to help you. So now we've got the opportunity for their lawyers to
This
possibly
was-
work on this.
This
give-
was, well, excuse me,
Go ahead.
this is drafted by myself and their council, the council of the association.
And we as the town are asking the governor and the state legislature to authorize us to plant trees outside of the right of way, that's all.
To give us a
We're
right,
asking the
To give
us a
Association
right
of
to do it.
Towns
to give us a right.
to-
We're asking the Association of Towns to lobby the
Right.
governor and the state legislature on our behalf, as well as, I'm assuming that
Every other
lots of
town.
other municipalities, because they're all
Right.
gonna be convening at the Association
Very
of
much so.
Towns next
Right.
month,
Very much.
which is why they would be looking for this right
Right.
now.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
so I make a motion adopting the resolution of the Town of New Paltz Board in support of municipal tree plantings outside the right of way.
Do you have a second?
Second?
Okay, and just for one quick discussion thing, the reason why they're also interested in doing this is because there's a lot of money, like Al said, through the federal government, but right now, only cities get it. So by
Right.
doing this, it opens the door for towns to take advantage of this federal money that right now we don't get, and that's why everybody's excited about it, okay? So,
Well,
Aye,
all in favor?
Aye.
okay,
Okay, motion so carried.
okay.
Thank you very much, Al, so now you can
Thank
take
you,
this
I
back to the
appreciate-
Association of Towns, and,
Yeah,
well,
And I
And
look
we will
forward to
make sure-
Susan being at the meeting
We'll
of
make-
Association of Towns
well,
and
actually,
supporting
I
this.
should find out when they're having when they're gonna be discussing this, because you and I might wanna go down there and actually be there
Yeah.
to lobby for them to choose to, take this on.
I've spoken with them, they may want me to go to Albany to meet with their resolutions committee.
And I'd be more than happy to go with you,
Thank
Okay?
you, Al.
okay?
Thank you
Al,
very
thank you
much.
for coming back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
We have
Yeah.
a supervisor.
We
Trees
appreciate
on
it.
Main Street. Okay, so,
Thank you.
thank you very
Thanks,
much.
Thank you,
Okay,
Al.
we have a couple of things that we have to do. Since Laura's here, I don't know if she in order to not have her stay all night,
Right.
if it's okay with everybody, I'd like Laura to come up. I specifically asked her to come here because there was a resolution that was passed by the Ulster County legislators in regard to the flow control and recycling, and it has an impact on our revenue. And the town supervisors of Ulster County have a breakfast every month. They just met on Tuesday morning. Was it Tuesday morning or yesterday morning, Laura? Tuesday morning. And this particular resolution was on the agenda. It was about the only thing on the agenda, other than the executive coming and speaking. And I asked Laura to come, being that she is such an expert in this. Laura spoke to all the supervisors. the Supervisor Association took action to ask our president to write a letter to the Ulster County Legislature saying why the local towns do not support including recycling to the level that they want in flow control. And that's going to be sent, and Carl Chipman, who's the new president of the Association of Town Supervisors in Ulster County, is going next Tuesday. He's being given privilege of the floor by Chairman Bernardo. And, but I asked Laura to come here tonight to sort of explain this to us so we all sort of know what's going on. And then if we want to take another step, we can also consider doing that. So, floor's yours, Laura.
Okay. Late last year, they did pass flow control. And of course, the Resource Recovery Agency, when it implemented its solid waste management plan 20 years ago to manage an issue, had incorporated flow control into their plan so they could go out and bond and so that they could have kind of an accountable amount of waste. It was challenged. It was called the Carbone decision. It was challenged and it was ruled as unconstitutional as far as interstate commerce went, because basically as these trash trucks were driving through certain counties, they would get pulled off of the roadways because they were within that county and directed to dispose at a designated facility in that county. So just recently, they did pass flow control in Ulster County, so they're once again going to begin implementing that. And what flow control is any waste that's generated in the county, the haulers will then be mandated to take it to a designated facility or facility of the agency's choice. Along with that, they're anticipating another 5 to 10% increased revenues. And of course, part of that is because they raise the tipping fees or the gate rate fees. Some of the haulers are paying between $62 and $75 a ton. It's been raised to $100 a ton. You know, and of course we say, oh, opportunity will get more people at the recycling center. What they did along with that flow control law, because right now it only affects MSW or municipal solid waste. It does not include construction and demolition debris. But they also added, with a resolution in December called Resolution 278, they are asking that the public authorities law, that's basically the enabling resolution or law for the Resource Recovery Agency, and has everything that the Resource Recovery Agency is supposed to follow, all the guidelines, the board of directors, you know, where they're pulled from, minority, majority, etc. But they ask that they delete a very important line, and that line is, it shall include all solid waste, but shall not include any scrap or any material of value separated from the waste stream and held for the purposes of materials recycling. And that was a very important deletion back in '92. When there was public session, they had haulers go forward, they had major box stores go forward, they had the towns go forward and ask that recycling not be included in that, because that was one of the revenue streams that towns were planning on. And the big box stores, well, they've been recycling forever. That's the largest part of their waste stream is recycling. They do plastic film, they do it all. This would impact municipalities. And of course, you know, we're being told, well, no, it doesn't include scrap. When you delete this, it very clearly does include scrap and
Read that
recycling.
section again?
Yeah,
It felt
this
like
section is,
15 double negatives, and by the
It
time I
is,
got
it
to the
is.
end of it, I was
all
like,
right, it's, and here it's out of the current public authority law, and that's on the second page. You know, where it has all the further and the where-tos, but to further the governmental and public purposes of the agency, which is the Ulster County Resource Recovery Agency. All right, so it's in paragraph 3 of the public authorities law, and that's okay. If you move down towards the bottom,
okay, you have it highlighted.
all right, where they're
in
talking
your
about
report.
municipal rule, except no such law shall be. Okay, it says, for the purposes of this subdivision, solid waste shall have the meaning specified in this title, but shall not include any scrap or any other material of value separated from the waste stream and held for purposes of materials recycling. So when we voiced concerns about flow control, We were assured by some lawmakers and by the DEC that it would not impact recycling or food waste, which is another of our big revenues, because that was a material specifically set aside, source separated, for the purpose of being recycled.
So,
So we were okay, and it included the materials we're diverting into our reuse center, because those were materials specifically being put aside to be
I'm
recycled.
confused between your memo.
Uh-huh. And the
Is this
actual
the part
law.
they're trying to change?
This is the part they're trying to change. This part 3, they want to delete, but shall not include.
Ah,
They want to take that out completely.
and that has an
okay.
impact on us in a
That
negative.
will have an
Huge.
impact on us. Now, the way it was being presented to the lawmakers was that it would only,
Lawmakers being the Ulster County Legislature,
Yes.
lawmakers.
yes, and I
ours
talked
voted
to,
for it.
I
Did they
talked
not
to some other
understand
towns
it?
that had their local representatives speak with them too, and they were all under the impression it would just be regulated recyclables, which didn't really impact towns because we're all under contract already to collect and turn over the mandated recyclables, which is your glass, your papers, plastic, only metal cans, and cardboard.
So why, from your perspective, why are they doing this?
They need revenue,
So they're taking the revenue from us.
right.
They've just built a brand-new facility.
No, they
Or
have
they're
a
going to,
facility that was built in 2002 with
Okay.
grant money, specifically for dual stream recycling. What had happened over the course of the last 10 years is they allowed some of the larger haulers to come in and go to single stream. So they're unable to manage that material because they have a dual stream, which means fiber is one stream and that's your paper and cardboard. And then the other stream is your plastics and glass and tin. And from the meetings I've sat in on, it'd be about $2 million to retrofit their facility to take it as dual stream and separate those out.
Well,
And they're not willing to make the investment.
Could they
So-
recover that 2 million though, if they let this go through?
I've looked at just under flow control with the garbage, and they were anticipating, again, 5 to 10% increase with a $100 fee change. That would give them another $1.3 million in revenues. They asked the county this year for $2.47 million, so they're still short. And just because they have flow control doesn't mean they're no longer eligible for net service fee payments. They can still ask for net service fee payments. So they'll need a revenue. They'll need the scrap metal.
so if our
and-
legislators voted for this without fully understanding its implications,
Mhm.
I mean, what happens? Can they call for a revote?
Well, I think
That's a good
I think
question.
what's happening right now is the resolution passed. On Tuesday night, Carl Chipman has been given privilege of the floor, and anybody else who wants to speak. Laura was actually given privilege of the floor also by Chairman Bernardo to go speak to the legislature about putting, some kind of restriction. I mean, so what they've done is they passed a resolution asking the state
Mhm.
to change the enabling legislation. And I think the purpose of Tuesday night is to go there on behalf of the town supervisors to say, what you just did has an impact on the towns, and you might want to reconsider what you're
I love it
doing.
when they say county impact, financial impact.
None. Yeah, maybe not the county. But,
So it could be a very fault, I
municipalities.
mean, if they're saying it's a type 2 action, that could be not correct. It may not be a type 2
I mean,
neg deck on it
it's
then.
not our problem that they built an inefficient system, and
Well, that's part of the problem. Part of the problem is because of the cost to the county for this net service fee. Even legislators who didn't believe in flow control supported it because they want to get that nut off of their back, and this is a step to get it off the back. Now, I will say that
they believe it will help.
Right. Now, I will say that Legislator Wishnick, who understands this a lot,
Mhm.
did email me today because he did hear about the meeting with the town supervisors,
Mhm.
and he said that, and he is somebody who spent a lot of time in solid waste, doesn't believe in flow control, but understood why he felt for this county that they needed to do flow control, and he did say that Laura wasn't necessarily wrong and that we might need to sort of reconsider whether we're going. I actually invited him to come tonight, told him Laura would be speaking, but it was very, it was late. So I can't, fault Ken for not being at legislative, wish Nick for not coming.
And he
But he
was,
did
I
write
think,
and-
the only legislator that asked questions in writing and got written responses back from doing the research. So he did try to research
Is there a way
it.
to amend this so that the
Mhm.
county can, I mean, can you go on
Of course,
Tuesday?
I think she's planning on going.
But I'd just like to know what
And make
they,
recommended amendments too.
yeah, that,
Mhm.
I mean, if they need to increase revenue, just make it clear that they need to find a way to do that without taking revenue away from the towns
Yeah.
that are already having to hand out the county tax bill, which everybody's paying this month. It's just taking revenue away from us that we don't have to give.
But it's even more than just that alone, because remember, we just started a whole, through our zero waste, we just started a whole
Right.
composting program,
Right.
working with the college, and then if we all of a sudden lost our composting,
Can't-
well, that's a whole part of our
Susan,
zero
Susan,
waste.
Yeah.
Susan,
Yeah,
if
you
you
know.
think about it though, isn't the Zero Waste Initiative a federal initiative?
Yes, it is.
It
And
is.
the federal initiative in this community should trump any local
Ah.
law which would affect our ability to be zero waste. So I think
That
that's
makes
the
sense.
angle.
That's
Uh-huh.
interesting.
Well, Laura
And
also
the
put,
state, the Beyond Waste also is a zero
So
waste more or
I
less
think we
initiative.
can get around
uh-huh.
it.
Well, also Laura had pointed out that actually in our particular contract with the UCRRA, it specifically says
It
that
has that verbiage in it, but
in
shall
our
not.
contract, so they
So
can't,
we're okay,
so,
What would physically happen?
as long as we have a good lawyer.
The ideas.
What would physically happen to food waste if this went through as it is? I mean, people who want to bring their recyclables to the town recycling center would still use the center, but it would go to the county facility, and we would just be
Right,
the
right.
pass-through.
They
So we
just
have all
want
the
the weight.
expense,
They
but
want
none
the
of the
weight.
revenue.
right, they want the weight.
See, they want the weight, Kitty. The more weight they get, the more money they get.
And how are we supposed to keep our recycling center open without
Well,
the revenue?
well, it's all
That's
part
a
of our
good
initiative, so we have to do that.
That's right, and then, of course, I mean, there's a lot of stuff we divert into the reuse center,
Oh, yeah.
because we don't look at it
Right.
as
Right.
garbage.
Right.
We look at it, we look at
As a
it
matter
as
of fact,
somebody
Commodity,
else is
yeah.
treasure.
The county is impinging our ability to reach zero, or.
Zero waste,
accomplish our
that's
goal.
exactly right.
And we actually dropped by 20% the waste going out from 2011 to 2012. It was 101 tons less.
And that's what
And
you
the
want.
revenues increased
That's right.
18,000.
And between 2010 and 2011, you dropped how much? I remember you dropped.
We dropped, it was about 60 tons. Yeah, so it
So
keeps
each-
decreasing.
We keep decreasing.
And we keep
each
making
year.
Right.
more money, so, if they wanna look at something, they should probably
Look at our model.
That's
look at
what
our
we
model
do.
They
and
should look at
start
our model.
sending out less
So do
garbage
you
and bringing
feel
less.
And-
ready,
and-
able
Why
to
don't we
go
get
up
the
there
county to
and
send all
say,
Yeah.
the-
Oh, Laura, Laura,
we got home rule, we got federal law, we got.
Laura, why don't we get the county to, we'll just take all the county's business.
Yeah, we could probably do that. We've got the transfer station on
Why
site.
don't we just bring it all in?
Yeah.
Mhm.
When's their contract over?
Well,
That's a longer discussion.
But,
with
but,
Susan.
but I will just say, what I will say is that Laura did come up to the supervisors meeting. Laura ended up being the speaker on behalf of the supervisors. Laura explained it all. They passed a resolution, in support of what Laura was talking about. And so Laura is ready, willing, and able to go up Tuesday night and
Make some
You know,
recommended changes.
make some
Yeah,
recommended
that's a good
changes. So I
idea.
wanted the board to know what was going on.
Thank you.
I wanted,
Tell them we're
to-
exempt.
Yeah.
I
Tell them
didn't wanna
we are
give them
exempt.
that card yet, but yeah.
So-
And Town of Ulster would be too. I'm
Yeah.
assuming they
And
have the
it's
same
just-
language.
Shocking to me that, the county would look at a town revenue stream and say, oh, thanks very much, we'll
Yeah.
take that.
I
Mhm.
don't think they realize the
tell you why
implications
later.
because they kept saying, well, that's not what it means.
No,
It's
no,
just
no.
the regulated
No,
waste,
no,
but if
no.
you take that
They
out, it's
understand
not
the
in there.
implications to the small local municipality, and they want it on a larger scale up at the county level. Yeah, but
I
they,
never called.
So,
them.
and then
Talked to
we
them.
had
Creating
another
a monopoly.
municipality
Talked to her.
really look at the flow control law,
Kinda like
and he
Pine
says,
One.
under the terms of the flow control law, anybody collecting solid waste or recycling as a hauler and has to be permitted. So I don't know if they'll be pushing that through or not.
A municipality
That means
would
all
be
the
exempt,
vendor, I
right?
would certainly hope
Right.
so. But yeah, it's,
Well, Laura,
Okay.
thank you for the great
Mess.
job that you do. You do an incredible job up there. And
We
thank
had a
you
great
for,
program yesterday at the community center.
Yep.
Mr. Bravo, learning how to recycle
oh,
tools. and
oh, did
stuff
you, I
like
mean,
that.
since he's here, I mean, did you want to take a quick, because you
yeah,
brought that up,
take a
Kitty.
look at that, yeah.
Well,
yeah.
there, I think that the public might be interested in knowing about the actual tool,
The concept.
yeah, but if you have old broken down garden tools, you can actually go up to the recycling center next week someday. Is it?
January 26th, yeah, from 10 to 1.
And learn how to put the handle back on your,
Yeah, don't throw the
Shovel,
tools away,
rake.
we've got lots of handles.
Right. yeah, so.
I would like to, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, no, I
Finish it.
just wanna say, we are trying to make some amends as far as the publicity that's gotten out. I did get a reporter calling from the Poughkeepsie Journal, and we're trying to clarify, Wolf and I do understand that this is to be a town program, so we are trying to tailor it, and I think part of his meeting last night, he actually said, here's his concept, but depending on what township you're in, or if you're dealing with a library, he says, different aspects of the program are very different, so, and it didn't, I don't know if it was quite clear in the New Paltz Times, it was a good article, but, just to clarify that
So
we're
this-
working
this
on as
will
a town
become
program,
a
will
town
come forward.
program, and
with a
it's really
proposal.
gonna be neat.
It'll
I
be
And
mean,
we
neat.
appreciate all of
Yeah.
Wolf's help. This is a town program though, and we appreciate everything he's doing to assist us in
He's
it.
been
And
wonderful, yeah.
I know you will manage it as our garbage, as our waste stream has decreased every
Yes,
year.
yeah.
I'm
And-
sure this will be
Yeah.
managed.
And I would like to
more than
also
we get.
point out something terrific, okay, in terms of our reuse and recycling. So my assistant Carol has been bothering me about getting a computer, for an extra computer to have there, because we have, like, we just had a bunch of students from participation in government and AP come in to get some of the community service hours, and they did an incredible amount of work, and other people come in, and Carol keeps saying, Susan, if we had another work computer in her office, when people come in, they could do some work there, and, instead of her having to go to her computer, she could tell them where to go and where to find things and whatever. So she's been wanting me to get a computer. So she said to me yesterday, you really need to get us another computer, because she was telling me about how great it was with these students. So Laura was here, and I turned around and I said, Laura, I know you have computers up there.
Mhm.
Can you get us a computer? And Laura said, yes.
Yes.
And Laura's bringing us a computer that we will be able to set up to have an extra
Wow.
computer. So instead of
Maybe
me
get her
putting
two.
$1,500 in the budget to get a computer, I turned to Laura, and she's getting us 2 computers that she's bringing down at no cost to the town, because of the success of our recycling reuse center.
That's great.
Isn't that phenomenal?
Okay,
Really great.
that's the way it's supposed to work.
I just signed a voucher to the police department buying a new microwave oven.
Yeah,
you
and we
have-
so
did
we
you
have
have-
I
so
think
many
I talked to-
microwave ovens and
Oh.
yeah, and we washing machines,
I can't tell you how
dryers, a
mad
lot
Kevin
of
and I
them
were
work.
signing for a brand new
think that's the
microwave
reason
oven
why-
for
Did
one of
they
our
take it out
departments.
of the box
I
yet?
think I actually spoke to them about it, though. There was I can't remember what I think
Maybe
I
some
checked,
sort of
I think
special
I
size.
did check with you, and to see before I would even consider it.
That could-
Remember, I called you and asked you?
Yeah.
And I think part of the problem is because they use it 24/7, because they're round the clock.
And
In
it has to be
terms of-
commercial.
If there's a commercial, and it's, blah, blah, blah. And so that's why, but believe me,
I know you were. I know you
I
felt the
called
same
her
way.
first, I talked to them, I
No,
said,
I know.
blah, blah, blah. And then because of the fact that it's 24/7, sometimes we just have to understand that.
But we have had
So-
the youth center come in, the
but-
police department,
yeah.
and then highway / buildings and grounds
Yeah.
is in all.
And we did the same exact thing, Jim
Do
Tigger
not
needed.
buy a microwave.
So Jim needed a computer at one point because of a computer monitor that got smashed. And he asked him to put money in for one. I called up to Laura. She brought him down a computer monitor right away.
Wow.
So
Just
we've been,
happened, we had the container cleaned out, but we do have a tower. We just gotta find the whole set for you, because Carol said don't show up unless I had the complete.
so anyway, thank you, Laura, very much for
Laura,
everything.
thank you so
And
much.
I believe that,
You don't
Okay.
believe she'd
All
say
right.
something like that?
yeah.
Moving right
Okay, so
along.
let's start to move through and get done with some of this stuff because it's getting late. Okay, so the first thing I think we have to do is Kevin is recused from this. So
I'm recused because it involves a client of mine.
this is a client of Kevin's, and so Kevin will not be voting on this. So I will just read this really quickly. This is from Joe Moriello. Dear Susan, in 2005, the town granted Roger and Lillian School its
And I
consent.
apologize. Do you need to recuse yourself to leave the room, or are you
No,
allowed
I
to?
can stay here.
Okay, just want to make sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you should have it.
Yeah, you can read mine.
okay?
Is
It,
it-
originally, this was the only
When I
thing we
got
had
it.
on the agenda, so this was early. In 2005, the town granted to Roger Lillian Spool its consent to extend at the Spool's sole cost and expense a 2-inch sewer line to be installed within the town's existing highway easement known as Millbrook Terrace. The installation of the line was to have been accomplished within 1 year from the granting of the town's consent on April 22nd, 2005. A copy of the consent is enclosed. So you were actually on the board, Kitty, probably when this happened. In a recent telephone conversation, Mr. Spool advised that the line had never been installed, that the Spools now have a prospective purchaser of the property which the line was to service, and that they are requesting that the town grant an extension of time for 2 years for installation of the line, and that such consent be granted not only to Mr. and Mrs. Spool, but also to their successor in interest to the property for future installation. Mr. Spool relates that he's currently being represented in this transaction by Kevin Barry Esquire, and asked me to bring this matter to the board's attention for consideration, and Mr. Barry must recuse himself with all respect to all issues surrounding this matter. In addition to the recording charges for consent, I would expect the attorney charges for the preparation of the extension and proceeding for its adoption before the board will not exceed $400 at the town's current hourly rate. I would suggest that any resolution granting the board's consent include a provision for the reimbursement to the town of its expenses incurred for its attorney and for its engineer as currently provided for in paragraph 7 of the closed agreement. So that's what's being requested of us. I gather when this went through the process back in 2005, the town had no problem with this.
I
Right,
remember it, I move it.
Okay,
You're extending it for 2 years.
yes.
yeah,
That they can hook
my
up.
only concern is the,
Well, why don't you
successor.
second it for discussion?
I'll second, or
Okay.
Kitty second, whatever.
Okay,
I have no,
Jeff second for Kitty, now go ahead, Kitty.
okay, I have no problem extending it for the schools, but I don't know what it means to
Meaning if they,
extend it to
if they sell,
successor.
if they
I
sell,
can
if they,
I think it's
if they
there.
sell it, if I'm wrong, then you can say, if they
Yeah.
sell it to somebody before the 2 years, those people have the ability to put it in at their expense. So we're not just granting it to them, if they should sell it, they're granting it to the
Right,
successor.
but the whole purpose of this was that, the schools
Schools need to
needed it.
connect. Right, you're
And-
right, you're exactly right.
Right, so.
That was why it was approved
For
in
the school,
2005.
no, I understand that, it was for the schools to be able to
Right.
connect it, but now if the schools have somebody who wanna buy the
Right,
property,
so they have 2 years in which to connect. I mean, I'm, or indefinitely, I'm willing, but this application was made by the schools.
And they
to
were
connect.
supposed to connect 7 years ago, is what Kitty's
So-
saying.
right,
Right,
I
and then we
understand
had
it.
the whole go round with the village and all that
Mhm.
kind of stuff.
Yes.
And so I would just, I don't know if this is a new document or,
No, I think it's the same document, it's just being asked to, extend it for 2 years, and that the consent be granted not just to the schools, but to the successor. So if they
Well-
should sell it before the line gets installed, the people who buy the property can
Well, then-
install it.
they'll have to, the new people will have to come in. But believe me, this was not an easy thing to
Nope.
negotiate with the village. It was on behalf of, the residents for the schools and, you know, they just need to do it.
Can I,
You
point of
cannot-
interest,
You cannot
I think
say,
you might need some information though.
you can't, you can't. Sorry. Much as I would value that information,
I
it
just
would
wanna give you the
compromise-
underlying facts so you
I
know what
but
they're
it
dealing
would
with.
just compromise any vote you took, so you can't.
Well, hypothetically, if I said they were under contract to sell the property, would that affect your,
La, 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 la.
you should know what you're dealing with though.
You can't vote, I'm sorry.
Well, I just,
Okay,
So
I
I
made a
actually,
motion
I would like
because
to,
it makes no
yeah,
difference to
motion is
me
seconded,
Okay.
I would just
whether
like to
they're
ask
on
the
or not.
supervisor
Right.
if she had have you spoken to Joe?
yes, as a matter of
And
fact,
are you comfortable, there's a good reason
I
for
think
the
there's no
2 year,
there's no problem.
2 year time span? Is there you are confident in
I'm
speaking to
fine.
Joe, that, because Kitty, I hear what you're saying exactly
Yeah.
too. So you feel that the 2 year time span Joe has put on there is for
Yes.
good reason?
yes, I saw Joe.
No, I'm fine, no, that's
Yep.
good, no, okay.
Yep, I
Kitty, because Kitty, I understand exactly what you're
Okay.
saying too.
I was asked by Joe to
And
bring this
if
forward.
our attorney and our supervisor are both confident that the 2 year time span is for,
And I'm willing to make the 2 years longer.
yeah, that's
but
what
it's
I'm with
only
Kitty
for
too,
the
and
schools.
I was
See,
wondering,
and I feel like
No,
it
the other
should
way.
have been
Well,
completed
I-
by now, it's because the purpose, most likely, to me, is rather than replace, septic was hooked into the
Yeah,
sewer main.
yeah.
But-
So it's now
So
7 years later.
The
Well, there's
emergency is
also-
over.
The-
Well,
or
there's
right,
there's
Yeah.
also, and it's not to be,
Because the hooking will be cheaper.
you know what, but sometimes when people start a project, certain things come up
I
and
know.
happen, and I'm not gonna discuss,
I'm
people's
not,
personal lives, but,
I'm not,
no, I'm just saying there are sometimes reasons why people,
because I don't know what their personal stuff is.
I know, so what I was just about to say is sometimes people ask for something, something happens and they can't move forward because of reasons. Now they're asking to be moved forward. To me, whether it's the schools or somebody else, I don't have a problem. The motion was moved, the motion was seconded. Do we need any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Well,
Aye.
what is the motion?
The motion is to extend,
My
to
motion
grant
was
an
to
extension.
extend it for
schools.
2 years.
To the schools?
No, well, it says right here, grant an extension of time for 2 years for installation of the line, that such consent be granted not only to the schools, but also to the successor in the interest of the property for its future installation.
So my motion is to the schools and or their successors. But my cap is the 2 years.
Okay, and Jeff, you
I
seconded
accept
that?
that, yep, and that's exactly what I seconded, yep,
But
from
now,
what's in
okay,
that.
maybe Kitty wants
Well, I
to,
suppose if it's within 2 years, they'll have to come back in 2 years if it hasn't been done.
Mhm. And you won't be here to have to deal with it again.
That's
Okay? So, all in favor?
Okay,
Aye.
I,
aye.
And Kevin's recused himself, so motion so carried. Okay, moving right along, the next thing I want to do is, let's just do the bike ped appointment. We have a person who's been asking to be on the bike, who has asked to be on the bike ped a while ago. He's been going to all the meetings.
Is Peter Kaufman?
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, somebody like to move that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I,
Motion so carried. Okay, we need to reclassify Chuck Bordino. We need to lay Chuck Bordino off as a full-time recreation director and then rehire him as a part-time recreation director at an annual salary of $18,000 as per civil service.
And actually, under civil service, I think the only thing in that, it needs to be corrected, and Gene, if you could help me, didn't we not discover it was not recreation director, it is recreation specialist is the
no,
actual title?
that's the pool director is a recreation
Oh,
specialist.
that was the recreation specialist.
Yes, the
Chuck's title is
recreation
correct.
director
Yes,
is
yeah.
a recreation.
Okay, so
Right.
that is correct, okay.
Right. So we need to do that for the purposes of the civil service. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to,
Are we
You can
eliminating?
rephrase
I
it.
make a motion to lay off a full-time recreation director position and
Create?
replace
'Cause we're putting him-
it with a
we accepted it.
part-time recreation director position
We have to do it when
at
the
an
civil service
annual
law.
salary of $18,000 and fill it with Chuck Bordino.
Actually,
Do I have a second?
we have to do
Second.
that.
Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay,
Aye.
motion so carried. Okay, authorization, I'd like, Kitty, well, we'll make the motion and then Kitty can do a little background. I'd like somebody to make a motion to authorize the supervisor to sign the Time Warner contract.
So moved.
Okay, discussion?
Second, I just have to bring it up here. Okay. So some
We got mine.
highlights of this.
We're gonna get $250,000.
Okay, when, as soon
Oh,
as we.
let
Actually,
me-
I know between Kitty and Kevin, I know reviewed the contract
Right.
also, because
Yeah.
I found it incredibly unreadable. So I hope between the,
Well, Kitty's gonna,
Totally
Kitty's
intentional. I
Kitty-
mean,
yes.
and this is after Andrea Russo tried to translate it into English 10 years
The
ago.
And just so you know,
thing-
if you have questions too, Kevin read it also, so he can
Okay.
translate
The
for
only
us.
I probably
thing-
can't answer any of your questions.
I don't have any questions.
No, but he read
the
it though, so
things-
maybe he can
All I
translate
wanna
some
say,
too.
all I do wanna say is, once we approve this tonight and we send it to Time Warner then signs it, they send it to the FCC reviews it, and then we get $250,000 in the bank.
This doesn't say anything about the payment.
We get $250,000, which is what was the sticking point last
Could you
time,
give us the hot
and we will
spots?
now get $250,000, so let's approve this and get moving.
Okay, so the hotspots are, I believe we are the last only single town in the state of New York where our senior citizens receive a complete discount.
Of
So,
1 month.
for 1 month, you pay your bill 12 months on time, the 13th month in the town of New Paltz is free. and we run a card on Channel 23 that gives you the contact information of the person to call. You fax your driver's license.
The problem is, since there isn't a 13-month in a year, you don't get the
Yeah, that's right. I've noticed that, you know, it sort of rotates, like it's January, February, March, you know, they'll, but, we are the only town, I'm pretty sure, in the state that gets that. At the written request and invitation of the town of New Paltz, at least once each calendar year during the term of this franchise, the company's general manager shall appear at a public session. So,
We talked about that, yes.
that's a really big thing. We can have the general manager come and sit here with us. If people complain about the reception, about their favorite
Right.
channels being knocked off, this is the.
So we should
chance.
diary that.
Yeah.
We should diary that.
Absolutely take it.
What do you mean by diary?
And just have the town clerk put it in
We actually.
every year for
if-
one of our meetings.
If, in the meeting that you actually attended, I think we actually talked about setting the date, if you remember correctly, to make sure we didn't lose
Right,
that.
right.
And we talked about, I think, sometime in March or whatever.
Right.
So, we do have to schedule that.
Maybe we should have the first meeting in March every year. We should have that on the agenda.
Yeah. good
Okay,
idea.
All right?
so do you want to make that motion?
So move.
Okay, a motion to,
Schedule a meeting with representatives from Time Warner.
The general manager.
The general manager referred in the agreement on the first meeting of the town board in the month of March of each year.
So we need to send them a letter.
Yep.
Second.
okay, so now, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Motion, sorry, carried, continue, Kitty.
And another big perk for residents is that the company agrees to maintain a convenient location which is accessible at least 20 hours per week for the payment of bills, because not everybody writes checks or has bill pay or credit cards. So you can bring your payment in to the village of New Paltz and or the town. I don't think we ever did designate the town as a drop off, but we could. But the village does have,
Collection box.
yes,
In the
that's,
front.
there you go. And that's actually Part J. We negotiated hard for that.
They don't take them at ShopRite anymore?
No, they didn't, there was no location in the town where you could physically walk in and pay your bill.
Is that it,
Must be
Kitty?
older than I thought.
Everything
Those
else?
are my highlights.
Okay,
What are your
So-
highlights?
I reviewed it. It's pretty much boilerplate of what it
Okay.
was the last few years.
Okay.
And the franchise fee's still in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
can't get around it.
No.
Oh.
So,
all in favor?
Do we have a first and a second on
We
the
already did the first and
authorization?
then we did the first and the second,
Aye.
and then Kitty did her,
I move to
Update.
authorize the town supervisor to sign the town of
That's
New
what
Paltz
I was
Cable
asking.
Television franchise renewal
oh,
agreement.
you already did have a first and a second.
No.
We already had the motion in the second, we were just discussing, Kitty was giving
All
us
in
the
favor?
highlights.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I can't wait to collect that $250. Okay. Okay, great. Okay, now, moving right along, before we go to Park Point, I gave you at the last minute, the Association of Towns 2013 Training School and Annual Meeting Agenda and, application, for February 17th through the 20th. If we do the registration before before 27th, we get an early bird special. And so we need to decide, A, who's going, and then authorize the payment of your fee and your hotel room. So, if you look at the schedule, they do have a lot of things on hydrofracking, some very interesting stuff. They have a lot of things on, budgeting, the local retirement system update, multi-year finance planning, town budget guidelines, shale gas drilling, fiscal stress monitoring, tax cap cases, workers' comp, seeker, history, issues and reform, procurement, emergency management and preparedness, ethics for planning and zoning boards. They
Okay, I would
have,
like to go.
okay, so
For financial stress monitoring for me,
is that, you're gonna go to that one? So who would like to go, and then let's figure out how much we wanna authorize for this. I don't know if that's what Jeff's doing. or-
No, I apologize, I was doing other math, because, you know, I went last year and
Yeah.
I went the previous year, so, and then looking through the schedule, I'm hoping others could go too, so. And I think for the best cost, way is, and I don't know if Gene, if you're interested in going down for a few days instead of going back and forth, or if, Kevin,
mean
you
you-
can go
you-
down for a couple days,
you
if there's
mean
only
you-
one day.
You mean you're not gonna be there to carry Jean's luggage?
I would love, Gene, I am trusting, yes, I am sorry that I will not be able to carry your luggage to the subways and.
And Jeff, look what I'm
And,
wearing. Do you
Oh my,
recognize these?
yes, you bought it in the, that little jewelry store down there.
The
yeah.
jewelry store at the
Yeah,
hotel.
that, at the hotel. But yes, they have a great schedule, but I think there's some financial ones that I hope Gene is interested in going to.
So you
because of
said you
some-
wanted to go, right, Jean?
There's financial, there's personnel, there's audits, there's operations and budgeting in the tax cap era, there's
So you do wanna go?
juicy stuff.
Yes, I know, so you do wanna go. And Kevin, I think I remember you saying you did wanna go?
Yeah.
Because Kevin hasn't made
Okay.
it to any yet,
Right.
so,
Now-
and I
now,
don't
I would
think we
say,
should,
Jeff-
and I know you probably want.
will go,
And there's
of
a lot of
course.
stuff you should go to, and
Yeah.
I don't want, I know Kitty's not here, but I think 3 should be our maximum under our budget right now to be going.
Well, honestly, I have to say that, the town board has money in its line. The town board really doesn't really spend that much money. And, if there's value in these programs,
There was only
and
a
if-
couple that I saw that I was really interested in, and they might be some of the same ones Gene was actually really interested in, and I think I even marked them. And I'm surprised they didn't ask you to actually speak at, there were some I saw in there on hydropacking, I'm surprised.
trust me, I speak when I'm there anyway.
I know. I was surprised because I know we have one of the few laws that has actually been passed and
And
not
I have to
been.
say that today I found, my commercials I produced, the I Love New York Water commercial, it was actually on Nightline.
Yeah,
I just learned that today, parts of it.
honestly, there was.
So, the fee is what, $100, so that would be $300 if 3 of us go, $400 if 4 go. So for $100, Jeff, and then, of course, Kevin, you're gonna stay overnight, one night?
One
Or-
night.
One night, and Jean, I don't know if I, originally,
are you
the
gonna
only
go
reason,
to that-
the only reason I stayed last time,
That
was-
supervisor's meeting at the end, is that, was that
well,
work?
it's because you go and you actually vote
Yeah,
on whatever's on the
Yeah.
agenda. I would, I didn't necessarily feel it was that worth it, although I did speak on the hydrofracking and on home rule and whatever. I was originally planning on not staying over to go to that meeting because I didn't think it was worth spending the extra night. The only thing now, I just don't know because of the, if our resolution makes it to the agenda, then I would love to be there to speak on our resolution. So I could make tentatively 2-night plans, but if they don't do our resolution, I could cancel it, and not stay the second night.
Right,
If they're gonna do our
you-
resolution on trees, I will be there.
Well, it's not, okay, it's not just your resolution
Yeah.
on trees,
They have some meetings
but
the next day
the
too.
citizens empowerment tax credits, they have
Oh.
a session on that.
Oh, then we should
And
be
so
there.
what, yeah, I'm thinking that it may come up,
Yeah,
you might want, yeah.
Oh, I have to be there.
I'm thinking that you have to be there.
I have to be there for that, I didn't see that.
Well, see,
Thank you for looking.
you're welcome.
Okay, I have to be there at that.
that's the
The
one
citizen
on,
empowerment is about,
Tax
What-
credits, local government citizens, reorganization empowerment grant. Well, we already did the efficiency grant and local government performance and efficiency program.
yeah, okay. So, you have no interest in going, Kitty, right?
No, thank
Okay, so,
and I should rate, the only ones I was interested in, there was a couple on Monday, but I have a feeling, Gene, you and I probably have interest in some of the same ones. So I think if you just bring it back, I could go on Monday, but that would be the only day I really saw courses that I would be interested in.
well,
But
if you
if you're
wanted to
gonna
go, if you
go-
wanted to go there and back and you didn't stay over, it would be $100.
I don't want, I don't see anything on Tuesday that would really, was there anything on Tuesday that you were gonna go to, Gene, that was really big?
Would
And
you
I
like a
said-
copy of the schedule?
And I was hoping,
Citizens empowerment tax credits, local government citizens
Yep.
reorganization.
About
They
healthcare
also
reform.
have
There's healthcare.
confidentiality, ethics course.
we're doing better on, I took their ethics last year, I did that, I went to.
Oh, you know what, I probably
went
gave
to
you,
the-
is
I
that
went-
Tuesday's
I
schedule,
went to
Michael?
ethics last year, and that was a good course.
Monday and Tuesday.
And I think, Kevin, we're actually ahead of we're ahead on just the work you did already
Yeah, for a
last
second,
year
because
on
I only
healthcare.
have Monday.
Town,
Because
Wait a minute, I'll let
healthcare
you
is
look in a
saying
second.
no. it's a sales
They
pitch,
have
it's presented
secret
by
form
night shift.
changes for
Yeah,
planning and
I'm
zoning.
serious, it's a night shift presentation. No, you leave there.
Nope, same thing.
you
It's
leave
just
there-
Tuesdays on the
you
bottom.
leave
They
angry.
do our.
Yeah, oh, no, no, it's a sales pitch.
Effective May
Okay,
and-
well-
Okay, all right, okay.
Okay,
But do our,
So-
do our
Talk
planning
to Susan,
commission
she will give you the
I
definition of
don't think
why.
they really actually
I
do.
don't
Some-
think they attend this.
I know in the past, sometimes Dave Clauser has attended. He didn't go last year. I remember he went when I was there, when I was around the first time, not at our expense, at his own. Okay, so,
Oh my gosh, Laura left,
what,
where is she?
There
In the
she is,
back.
she's in the back.
Oh, there she is. Case study, Rockland County Municipal Solid Waste Authority. That whole course.
You wanna go to the city and go to that?
They have a great program.
so she already knows it.
work with the
Oh, okay.
and the gases
Alright.
from their composting.
See, she already knows. We don't have to send you down. She can teach the
You
course.
just talked yourself out of a trip to New York.
All right, then I'll,
Yes.
I'll sit
Okay.
in on it and learn
Okay,
about it.
so,
So if anything, you know, the only thing is, you know what, I would go down just for the Monday, I don't see a lot, like I said, I know on Tuesday,
Jeff, if you want to go down Monday, I am more than happy to authorize $100 for you to come down.
I will go down Monday, if
Okay.
no one has an objection,
I have
and
no
I will
objection at
not be
all.
going to, and the
Okay.
Tuesday, I think there's plenty of other
So
people
we
that are
can all go
attending
down
also.
Monday. None of us have to go down Sunday night, I don't
And
think,
I
for a
hope you're
hotel
gonna, and you're
room.
gonna stay in
And I
both,
will go down Monday, and I will stay Monday and Tuesday, come back Wednesday.
because you'll do
Kevin,
the
you're,
vote.
because I'm gonna go down to the citizen empowerment, and I'm gonna go to
Good.
where I vote, on the resolutions. Kevin, you're coming down, and you're gonna come down.
Monday night, come back Tuesday.
Okay, so you're gonna stay one night in a hotel, and then Jean, you're gonna do 2 nights or 1 night or what?
I would like to do 2 nights if that's okay.
Okay, so, are we doing a triple, 3 people, 2 beds?
I'll carry,
Thank you.
if you go down Monday with me, I'll carry your, if you go down Monday with me, I'll carry your luggage, by the way, if you'd like.
What?
Listen, I'm not wearing heels this year.
A town's perspective on
People
dissolution.
dragged me.
Well, actually, the thing with Seneca Falls, they did this last year, so it'd
Oh,
be interesting to hear.
I
But the thing with Seneca Falls, that's really interesting,
They dissolved.
they dissolved the village, and the reason why they dissolved the village was because the town had a transfer station, a landfill. The town was building a landfill.
No, they
The town
had
wa-
already had the landfill.
They were getting
already
so
had
much
it.
revenue from, they were getting so much revenue from the landfill, and the village was getting no benefit, that the village dissolved
Right.
in order to get the benefit of the money from, the tax revenue from the landfill. The problem was, and this was a really interesting thing, which is why we're so different, okay?
Yeah,
What happened was, the village just chose to dissolve, there was no plan in place, they had nothing, they had no plans, they had nothing, the town wasn't prepared to absorb them, and so it became a really bad situation,
Yeah.
because they didn't plan, like we've done for
Sort of like
50 years.
Germany, right?
Right,
So they got
So-
East Germany.
right, so,
didn't their village had like 96 people or something, right?
No, I mean, it was a little bit larger than that, but I mean.
It was not
yeah.
like 50-50 like us.
right.
Not at all like that.
And just so you know, it is, and I do, if anyone wants the presentation, I still have it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I've referred to it several times. It's an interesting presentation.
Yeah.
But it is now, as I just told Kevin, some of these are actually sales pitches.
yeah.
I
and
wonder
it's
if they'll
now
do
a
an
little bit-
update a year later.
That's why I'm
No,
interested to see.
It's
because
actually a sales pitch to use a,
company,
some of the politicians that were then left without positions because of the dissolving have now gone and formed a consulting company. So
Oh.
there's a little, it
Okay.
ends in a sales pitch. I'm sorry to ruin, this is a spoiler alert. The presentation, the presentation ends in a sales pitch. That we will then gladly come and guide you. Now, to Susan's point though, there were some horrible things. A simple one was, who do we make our state retirement payments to now? And they had all these people sitting there, and the state said, well, we need your money, and the village said, well, we no longer exist, because they actually dissolved under the village's budget season, not under the town's budget season, and they didn't even dissolve with a time plan. They literally
solved.
The door.
they literally dropped the keys on the desk and said, we're on. There was no transition plan.
funny.
So the lesson is you do not dissolve or change your structure without a
Without
couple
talking it and talking it,
talking about
talking it to death.
and a couple-year transition plan in it, or you will
Right.
have a lot of problems.
So
But if
anyway.
anyone wants it, I do have that
Okay.
Seneca Falls presentation, and it is very interesting to read.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's just so we can make a
So
motion.
I will go
Alright.
Monday. I
Okay,
will
so,
not be staying
so,
overnight.
so four of us will go, Jeff will do one day, Kevin's gonna do 2 days, Susan and Jean are gonna stay for the 3 days. And so that'll be the $400 registration fee, and then we just have to figure out the room fee,
And us being one of the larger towns in the state, maybe you could meet with the new, Jeffrey Haber is no longer,
yeah, there's a new executive
What?
director, and
there's a new executive
There's no
director,
executive director, Jeffrey Haber,
stepped
went back to the
down.
Southern Plantation that he came off of.
So maybe you could, and us being one of the one of the larger towns, maybe you could,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
maybe you could meet with, or
And
have-
also, they have now a new president of the association, from what I understand, who's totally pro-fracking. So
this
that should be
fun.
interesting.
maybe you could actually meet with them.
So that should be interesting. So, we can figure out how we're gonna get down there, I just wanna look at the hotel rates.
All right,
Um,
it's 205 a night if you wanna go to the Sheraton, and 256 if you wanna go to the Hilton.
And last year, we stayed at the Sheraton, because it was cheaper,
And it's a 1-minute walk.
and it's across the street.
It's literally a 30-second walk, so.
So Jean, are we sharing a room?
It's 820.
They have a nice gym.
It's the same price, Susan, if we,
Oh,
if
get
we
our own
get
room?
singles or
Oh,
doubles.
okay, fine, so we'll get 3 singles. Okay, so we'll do 3 singles at the Sheraton. 1 for 1 night and 2 for 2 nights. So that's,
1,025.
is that including the 400?
No,
Okay, so,
$1,425.
okay, so could you make a motion, or somebody?
I move that we authorize the attendance at the Association of Towns for 4 board members in the amount of $1,425. And I believe we put $2,000 for.
Yeah,
Second.
okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion's carried.
Can-
The only
Can
thing
I
is-
just say something?
Sure.
Roseanne's coming, right?
No, she doesn't like
No?
going to these.
Oh,
You don't
I'm
wanna go
sorry.
to E-Records boot camp?
But they actually, they have
We have a separate one for clerks.
they have a separate one for clerks, so
Oh.
and
oh.
Are you gonna go to that one?
one's better, isn't it?
I went to it last year and I thought it was not very beneficial to me.
Is a lot of it sales pitches also on new buying their
It's a lot
software?
of the same things over and over again that I pretty much already know.
Okay.
Okay, there was something I was gonna say, I know, I'm just trying to think what there was to say next, but I don't know. Okay. So
Park
that's
Point?
that. Okay, Park Point. 2 things on Park Point. The first thing, which is easier to do, we talked about hiring an independent consultant to do a financial independent consultant. And, so Dave Clauser sent something basically saying not to let it fall through the cracks, and that, all seem to believe that the town's hiring an independent consultant to review and evaluate the fiscal impacts of Park Point is a necessary step in the FEIS process. To do this, an RFP needs to be prepared to solicit interest and qualifications of experienced consultants. I offered a couple of consultants that I have reviewed their work and was impressed. Kitty has also sent information to some consultants that might be interested in responding to an RFP. Understanding the town board will be meeting tonight, would it be reasonable to move forward to authorize the preparation of an RFP by someone or a group of someone so that matter can be addressed? I'm not trying to force the issue, but this one seems to be loose ends that needs to be resolved. And I think Mike Calamano wrote to him saying that he'd be out of town for a couple of weeks. He does not have an opinion on the consultant, but wanted the town board to be in agreement on the selection. He believes that you can put an RFP out to the consultants. It is basically to review the fiscal impact of the project on the town. I am looking for an independent look at their economic consultant's work. I can review the RFP when you have it together. So Mike is actually, in essence, asking Dave to pull together the RFP with the town board's consent. And so I wanted to bring this forward, so I think we need to get this going, so
So I authorize you to authorize Dave to develop
the RFP to bring back to the town. Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion is so carried. Then, George Lithgow and I met as authorized by the board to start to work on, the letter to go to the planning board, having our town board comments. We took Kitty's letter as a sort of starting point. There were some things he did take out that he thought might be better served by Kitty writing individually, but then tried to then go back and really assess a lot of the areas and flush them out. He was hoping to get it to us next week. I told him yesterday afternoon that I was trying to minimize the amount of work we have to do next week, being that we have a joint town-village meeting, and the less we have to do afterwards, the better we probably
and-
all will be because of the emotional turmoil of
And-
town-village meetings and
and just so everyone-
consolidation.
And just so you know, though, and just to interrupt for 5 seconds, is they did close the public hearing, but they are going to be accepting comments up until January 28th.
31st, I thought.
I apologize, January 31st. They did not do the 10 days, I apologize. So they'll be accepting them until January 31st comments. So we do have a fairly good window, and I think the planning board did a great job in taking in all of the comments
So what I did.
verbally, and they've extended beyond the required 10 days by adding an additional almost 2 weeks and taking them up till the 31st.
So what George had originally planned on getting this to us next week, and I said to him, look, I said, because next week is gonna be again, like I said, consolidation is first, and so I don't know what kind of shape anybody's gonna wanna be in afterwards to do town work. I said that what my preference would be, it was him to flush out as much as he could, get me a copy tonight. We could either all look through the copy now and talk about it, or, if you all wanna take this, review it, send me, your opinions, what you'd like to see or whatever. Then we could have a more flushed out one for next week for us to approve to send. Or we can just sort of go through this right now. I mean, we don't have a lot left to do. I mean, we don't have to do that much in committee reports. And we don't have that much more left on the agenda for tonight, other than sort of, so if you want to go through this a little bit, we can do that. We have the time.
Good,
Okay, so why don't we, if that's okay with everybody, you want to do with that? We'll go through a little bit right now?
Okay. So, line 17, page 1, it says, while the applicants are responsible for mitigation of these impacts by means of a pilot, that to me presumes that a pilot will happen. I would like to change the word
Okay.
"are" to "could be," because I don't want any language in here that says we're definitely going with a pilot.
Okay, so it would be, while the applicants
While
could
the
be
applicants could be.
could be responsible. Okay.
I don't think that really changes it much, Kitty.
Well,
Not the
are
way you want.
responsible feels to me, maybe then there's a strong way of saying it, but are sounds to me like we've already accepted that there will be a pilot.
What about will be responsible for mitigation?
What if you just take out the words by means of a pilot?
What's the intent of the sentence?
You know what? I'm okay with that.
Just take out the
Just
words
take
means
out
of a
by
pilot.
means of a pilot agreement.
Everything from line 17 through line 23, from research I have done though, and due to recent contract talks, SUNY PD have zero obligation and have stated publicly they will not, under any circumstances, go on to private property. So I would think that I would almost be comfortable in removing all of this and providing that a formula needs to be brought up of.
They came out and
It's
said.
actually, I forwarded that all to all of you, I copied all of you, and I copied Lithgow on it. There's actual case law and a statement from the Commandant that says they absolutely will not respond. I sent it to all of you in your email, and they absolutely will not, and it's actually in their last contract agreement, report to
So
any private
Why
land.
does Park Point think they are part of the campus?
Because they do not think they're part of a campus. They got a memo. If you look through the fiscal
Yeah.
impact statement, there is a faxed copy of a letter from,
But
the
that's
chief
dated
of,
before.
well, it's actually from Dave DeGatkin also, who cannot speak for, it is not from the commandant, it is from Dave DeGatkin, who is an excellent leader of the SUNY police, and his skills are, I would not question whatsoever, but he is stating that he does not feel there will be any problem for them to respond there. Unfortunately, it's from the local police, SUNY PD head, not from the commandant. The commandant has stated that they will not respond to anything off campus. So we cannot ask that they will do it. When I went back and did the math, based on how many calls the SUNY PD has to their current base, it does work out that it would be the impact of several $100,000 to our police department to respond to calls.
Well, let me.
Because they have no responsibility to call there.
Well,
This
this is,
whole paragraph is confusing.
Yeah, I think the whole paragraph should be
Can we go,
struck.
why don't we go back to, I agree.
line by line. Let me
No,
just-
no, I think that whole paragraph should be
Let's start with
struck.
line
Okay.
number 11. Let's
Well,
start with
okay,
the
well,
first one.
before we do that, why don't we, in just fairness to the people watching and listening, why don't we just read the beginning, and then we could read the paragraph, that we might want to play with. So it says, the supervisor has been authorized to submit the following comments on behalf of the town board. In addition, additional comments submitted by the individual town board members are attached. Fiscal impact analysis. The fiscal impact analysis must be updated with cost information acceptable to the town board and reviewed by an independent fiscal analysis to determine whether the anticipated costs of the town are fully and fairly stated.
So can we just deal with that sentence?
Do we
first?
like that sentence, or do we want to change it?
It's the fiscal impact analysis provided by the project, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm,
Provided to the town by the project, right?
okay,
Mhm.
provided to the town,
By the project,
uh-huh,
must be updated with cost information, right? So you're asking them to take
Right.
what they provided before and update it
mm-hmm.
with cost information acceptable in a format I would say in an acceptable format to the town.
What do you mean by in an acceptable
You
format?
want to tell them how you want the information.
Okay.
Rather than having them give you the information,
Okay.
and then you have to decipher it.
Okay,
So maybe you can prepare some kind of a template for how you want them to deliver the cost to
More
you.
than that, all of their data just seems anecdotal, or, in discussions with SUNY.
Well, no, there actually is very good data in there, they just didn't use it. So for example, they have, which Gene loves, they have the actual data in there, it was just then later ignored because it doesn't tell the story they want. So for example, you have, we'll just make it round numbers for easy math, you have 10 police officers on SUNY and you have 1,000 students and they make 100 calls. Nice and simple, you need 10 officers to do it. You now have 750 new students that are going to be living there, and they are stating that there'll be no fiscal impact whatsoever. Not only does that not make sense to Dave DeGatkin's force, Dave should be sitting there and saying, great, you're adding 750 students, I need 2 new officers. So they're not even supporting the university, they're not even supporting us, because now we're going to have to make the calls on
I mean,
those
just little
750
things like
students.
the new vest that we had to pay for,
Well-
the new police officer.
well,
We
let me
decided
just-
on $800.
Thousand
Well,
$1,000 by the
well,
time you add
wait
it up,
till
yeah.
wait till you guys see what I had to approve today, which was the cleaning of the uniforms. So
Well, how about the
420
officer doesn't return the uniforms?
$425 for cleaning of uniforms, and how many,
And that's only this.
this is the beginning of the
right,
year, right?
you'll
But
get
anyway,
more
this
of
is
those.
more interesting, because I did meet with Joe and with George Lithgow to try to come up with numbers for the worst-case scenario for the police, and try to, delineate those numbers, and it was so eye-opening, because our New Paltz Police Department does 16,000 calls a year, between 15 and 16,000 calls a year. We have 13 police officers,
Full-time.
13 full-time police officers, 2 detectives, 1 is a sergeant, 4 sergeants, 1 lieutenant, a chief, for a total of 21. 15 to 16,000 calls a year.
Plus part-time.
Yeah, okay. The SUNY police respond to 3,751 calls a year.
1/5.
Okay, they have 20 police officers. They have 20 police officers. They have 1 detective, 4 lieutenants, one chief. They have 26 police officers for 3,750 calls. We have 21 police officers for 16,000 calls. And the reason we have a bigger police department is because we have to protect the students downtown at night.
Correct.
If that is not an eye-opener,
Yeah.
So,
okay,
well,
if the
So,
inadequate, inefficient, and skewed, you know,
and I apologize, just one more time. How many calls did the SUNY PD make? Just
3,751 calls a year
with how many officers?
with 26 officers,
26.
and the New Paltz Police make 16,000 calls a year with 21 officers. The SUNY PD have a bigger police budget, and they're not allowed off the campus to come downtown to protect their students at night.
But they can patrol the roads that
To give you a
serve
speeding
the
ticket.
perimeter of the campus.
Yes.
So, and living on campus, if I remember top of my head, was 60,
How
no,
many
living on
students?
campus.
I'm not sure.
70%, so I believe it was, so six, so it would be
Well,
probably
there's probably about
40.
6,000, well, I know there's about 6,000 students that
So
probably, that
40
aren't.
So let's say there's 4,000. Well,
Anyway.
anyway,
The point is,
Jeff.
it doesn't even wait, it doesn't
anyway,
matter.
that shows me,
How
that
do
should,
we
no,
want to
but,
address that in this?
Well,
Well,
so
I'm planning on,
hypothetically-
this
So
is my,
Hypothetically,
if I don't have enough issues
What
to
you
take on
do
this
is-
is the
No.
next one.
What you do is in the format I'm talking about, you're gonna say, okay, additional police officers required. And then next to that, we can put a dollar value on what a police officer costs.
Well, we did, well, Joe said that, Joe
Here's one
said,
problem, this is one thing that you're reminding me. They say that existing demand for on-campus housing is 105%, but I can't find anywhere in the report where does anybody know how many students currently live on campus?
Well, that's
yeah,
what Jeff
that
was
number,
just
I
asking.
forgot, it is in it is in the report, and I apologize, I didn't bring it.
Well, must
It
not
actually
be
is
the
in there.
financial one. Must
It's
be
not in the
somewhere else.
financial one, it's in one of the appendices, and I apologize, I cannot remember which
All
one.
right, I can't.
so,
It actually is in there though, Kitty. And that's where
Is it
actually,
like- I mean, if there's a total of 8,000 students, is it fair to say 4,000
if you
of
can
them?
find the email I sent out, that would have, I don't know if you can search that real
Yeah.
quick, and that has the numbers in it, because I use the numbers from their reports.
Do you know when
Now-
you said it?
About a month ago.
the chief said when calculating, he said he would need 2 more officers.
Well, what the problem is in their original report, the chief put that there would be no impact.
Well, that was because he
but
thought, he was told,
It was a setup, and that's actually, it
Right.
was the same reason why the rescue squad actually declined to even send an email. The
uh-huh.
rescue squad, if you notice, didn't say it because they got hold of them and they declined to even send one stating that, because they did feel that there is going to be an impact on the rescue squad.
Well, look, first of all, I know from just the town gal meetings that the rescue squad has said that there's been an increase in calls to the campus by the rescue squad because drinking patterns have changed, where kids are drinking younger and they're drinking more, and so they have been increasing their calls to the campus because of,
Kids are passing out.
because kids are
They
passing
start
out.
drinking there.
And so there is an increase, and we're going to have to factor that in, you know, if there's gonna be 700 more students in our, you know, in our community.
You know, and I think we're all gonna spend a lot more time on this 10 pages than any of us are prepared to tonight.
I know, that's what we, and I
So,
just
and
didn't
I'm
get it.
wondering, I think we should, Katie, I'm wondering we should all be better to redline this, forward them back.
Well, I think
Well,
And-
we
let me
don't
ask
want to
you-
do this next week.
Well, what I'd like to do is, because, again, I don't wanna sit and, you know, again, George got it to me literally about 15, you know, I
Yeah.
mean, I went upstairs and this is what I was printing off, because, again, I asked George at 4 o'clock last night, he wasn't expecting to have this for tomorrow, he wanted it for next week. I said, please, mark up as much as you can, get me as much as you can to the board. I want the board to look at this as much as they can to, again, alleviate how much we have to do next week. We don't have to do it tonight. What we could also do
I
is
mean-
create a
As
little
much
bit of a
as we can
subcommittee
tonight.
between.
Let's just make a start on this.
Because I wouldn't even mind having a special meeting prior to the 31st, even doing this, to be honest with you.
Well, I was
because
also gonna say that if,
we haven't even gotten into the
I'm fine with
sewer and the water. I'll be honest with you, there's just,
By the
and,
way, you could just
well, let me
focus
ask you a
on
question,
the-
could I do a little bit of a subcommittee with,
well,
Kitty,
I would-
Kevin, and
I'm
Jeff to
not
work on
here
it?
I leave on the 29th.
I'll
or
work on it with you.
something.
Well, we have to have it in by the 31st.
well, yeah, because I would really like,
It has to be in by
Oh, so it
January
has to be
31st.
next week.
It has to
Yeah.
be in by the
So
31st,
actually, though,
if we
Kitty,
want to approve it, we have to do it at the 24th.
if you want a red line and send out to us, I have no problem meeting with
Yeah, well,
Kevin, because I
we'll
would
get
like to
together.
have
Fine.
Kevin's language
The only thing I'm
through it.
concerned
Okay.
about is I don't want any language in here that makes it sound like we've accepted that there's a pilot. We need to request that there be a conservation easement on any protected, on any land that isn't, shown as being built on. I would like a visual simulation, like the one that we saw in here, of what the, view would be like from the mountain down to, the project. If you guys could just put those things in, I think those are the big things I was feeling we're missing.
And I think, Kitty, you hit on all three huge ones that the board's been speaking to, and one is also, and I think it's one that's where we're gonna need Kevin's language, is because the developers continue to just simply state that the conservation easement is and I think it's almost a legal phrase, that is a non-starter because the state refuses to do it. Because the land is held by
You know,
the
that's so
state, not by
bogus.
Wilmerite. So
The
Wilmerite,
foundation.
so since Wilmerite has no control
It can be a
over,
The
license, it can
foundation
be a
is
conservation
private
license then.
foundation.
see, this is why we
Private
need,
foundations are land trusts.
I
mean,
s-
that's
I
what
fully
they
agree with
do.
you, but-
It's
You're right.
like,
you're right,
it's
no,
just
no,
ridiculous.
I think that's why Kevin's language is to be put into there also, because the
other
language they're
thing-
using is saying that they cannot control it.
The other thing I noticed is that apparently the SUNY Foundation has amended its bylaws. Because if you go to their website, their mission is scholarships and enhancing student mentorships and things like that. But apparently they've amended their bylaws to include providing dormitory housing. It's not on their website yet, but
And,
wow.
and quite frankly, that's fine, if they need the dormitory housing. It's just, we wanna make sure that the costs are properly spread across the community, that's it.
Well, I think we're talking about two different things. It's a pretty significant step for a nonprofit foundation to amend its bylaws and go
Yes.
in such an expanded vision.
Right,
Yeah,
because-
but-
because they
but-
know-
But all of them are starting to do that now because of the need for money. Fewer and
I
fewer
have-
grants.
You're talking to the wrong person,
I
because that's what
just-
Kitty spends her
I
life.
have only worked for nonprofits, but yeah, just follow the bylaws and say anything that could make us some money is hereby adopted.
And to Kitty's point is, and what was shocking when you sent that out, and I did go onto their website, is
Is it
that
on
it
the
doesn't
website?
even state, well, you sent it out to
It
us,
wasn't when I saw
They
it.
had to do that.
No,
And in order to
that
do
they
what
changed their
doing.
You can
bylaws.
do that after the fact.
No, when you
You guys
sent
did.
it out, it wasn't, and they had changed it, but
Yeah.
what shocked me, Kevin, though, is that you have a non-for-profit saying that they're doing housing, but yet they make no mention whatsoever that it will be affordable housing for which you should want to attract. Because this is going to be affordable, housing at market rate, which is no way affordable housing. So if they said, we're
You know
going
what
to,
it is?
yeah,
You know what, I'm just thinking that, not-for-profit, like the foundation, who changes their mission or their bylaws to include housing, has all of a sudden found a mechanism to subsidize that housing. I have housing programs,
Yeah.
and they're subsidized substantially.
Interesting.
And
And-
so, as Kitty said, and I agree, you cannot take it lightly to change the bylaws of a nonprofit.
And
That's a big
I may have
feat.
misspoken. I don't know if they've
Oh,
changed.
okay.
We got that letter from George Lithgow. They may not have changed their bylaws, they may just have changed their
Oh, the
mission statement.
mission, well, that's okay.
So, let me, well,
that's still a pretty big deal to change your mission statement
Um,
of a non-for-profit,
but
though.
let me just see if I can find
So you
that.
think they could do it, Gene, to?
No, if it would have to be in the bylaws, and then they would be eligible for certain funding streams that they may currently not be eligible if that was not part of their mission statement.
And then that funding stream could include hypothetically going out and purchasing housing that
No,
may have been developed by
not
someone else.
purchasing the
No.
housing would be in place, it could potentially influence who's put in the housing.
Well, I don't think they could subsidize the housing because their interest is simply as a
Profit
ground
driven.
lease holder.
Right.
And as a ground lease holder, they have no interest in the improvements until the end of the ground lease.
Right.
At which time the improvements become the property of the landowner. So if they're limited in scope to providing an opportunity for housing, but not actually be engaged in the business of housing, they can't subsidize it.
And just so you know, the in this particular one, they're stating now, though, the ground improvements would not become their property. They have the right to purchase the ground improvements
They would have
at the
to.
value.
They would have to have that to protect them in the event that the owner of the improvements defaulted and ran away. Because at that point, you're left with a situation where you don't own the improvements. So that mechanism gives you the way to buy them out of the project so you can continue to operate it for your students. So that makes sense to me.
All right, but the entire project is no longer being discussed as this dormitory housing, correct? It's a portion dormitory housing. Is that right or wrong?
I thought that the project is dormitory housing for students and faculty.
That's right.
members.
That's
Well,
right.
there's two different
It's
parts
just-
of the,
Oh,
It's
okay,
it's
but I
dormitory
haven't-
for the students and faculty, it's just that the faculty part is taxable.
it's in phases. There's 3 phases. So the first phase will be putting up
Okay.
structures that will support housing designed for students. They will be 3-bedroom suites,
Okay.
including a kitchen.
Renting for.
All fully furnished, being rented exclusively to
Do
students.
you know for what monthly rent?
You're looking about 700, $750 a month per
Per
bed.
A head.
Per head.
So is it charged per semester or is it per month?
You are signing a lease that fulfills the semester.
Okay. So the summer, they're vacant.
The summer, potentially, that was one of the questions about the sewage treatment, was during the summer months that you could potentially have some issues with sewage, but luckily we have an engineer that's been at all the meetings, and he has assured us that newer sewer treatment plants can handle those extremes in flows, going from
Kevin,
high flow to low flow.
Okay, so
could we encourage, I don't know if we would even be able to do it, but could we encourage that this dormitory housing that would be based on the school year was based on 12 months? Because my fear would be, if you have it based on the school year, what are they gonna do every summer? Are they empty? Are
Yeah,
they
but
not
how do
driving?
you-
Oh, they might-
How do you regulate?
well, you know what, I think we're getting, I think
That
we're
would
getting,
be, that would be a problem.
are we getting away, though, we're getting away from our letter, aren't we?
regulate private.
No, this is actually part of what you would
Okay.
want as our comments is,
Okay.
can we add into, our part of the comments, does it become that the leases, and this comes to the point, if you go on to, and I apologize, I believe it's Park Point Rochester, but please, it could be the Syracuse one, they actually have a copy of the lease, and and it says right in there, this is student housing only,
Okay,
period.
but I'm thinking more like, what we live with, which is Southside, which the kids live in during the school year, but then all summer.
I don't think that's the.
Well, then all summer, they rent it out to seniors then.
In
Yes.
It gets
Florida.
restructured and retrofitted. And these also get restructured and, these are actually with these, they come fully furnished, and the kitchen is fully furnished. And you are not allowed to bring in actually furniture or anything. It's actually part of the deal is you use the furnishings that are
Oh,
provided.
then it is dorm.
So we will not be, and the reason why they are referring to as dorm is the meeting that Susan had booked herself to go to, and then mysteriously it was canceled up in Kingston, and then mysteriously it was
Scheduled without me knowing.
scheduled without anyone knowing. Well, I guess it was legally posted, but they didn't make it out. That's when they added dormitories to pilots up in Ulster County. So prior to that meeting, you could not get a pilot for dormitory housing. That was the meeting Susan was going to go to. They
Okay.
canceled it, and then it was set up for the following, I believe, 4 or 5 days later.
I was never told.
And, I
you
mean,
would
it was
think
it was
that
publicly noticed
dormitories
properly.
weren't
They were not.
added originally because of the significant impacts they have on a community.
So you're saying, but,
Now,
So
then
what
they
you're
were, in
telling me
September
is
they
it
were
was-
added.
yes, very recently.
Oh, yeah,
September.
it was just added.
That, it was, it literally,
Okay.
We spoke about it, we
Is
spoke
it
about it.
project specific?
We spoke about it.
What, you're smiling, am I not supposed to say that on camera?
no, you
I-
said.
I'm not,
project?
I'm not.
No.
You didn't say it, I did, I asked, is
Well, it's
it project?
interesting you should say that because there's only 2 places dormitories that are being added, in New Paltz and in Stone Ridge.
Okay,
So
except
it's-
Well,
that,
actually, the community college is sort of talking about it, but they're nowhere close
Right, but
to even-
eventually that would be the only
okay,
project.
but I do believe that SUNY Ulster was watching Dutchess when they were trying to create the dormitories for a community college, because basically that's your all-commuter school.
Yeah.
So they wanted a piece of the pie,
And Dutchess
like a
now has them.
SUNY.
And Dutchess now has
And,
them.
right, and Dutchess does now have them. So I think that SUNY Ulster's been watching
No,
it,
no,
and they
no.
wanted a piece.
I used to be the chair
Right.
of the county.
funding that-
No, I used to be the chair of the county committee that oversaw the college.
Okay.
And dorms have been discussed on and
Yeah.
off and on and off, and we were there, I was there when they were discussing it. When they added the dorms to the IDA, I thought it might have been because of the Ulster County Community
Ah.
College desire to build dorms, but I've been told no.
So that was just added in September. So literally it was added in September. They added that and they put in a factor rate in there too of what you would get as an abatement. So
All right.
it is
but-
new.
Okay,
And
but,
you might not remember, we actually discussed when we found out that they were, we got a thing from the IDA that they were looking to put in student dormitories. And Kitty had asked me, I was authorized by this board to get to the IDA meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning up in Kingston when it was being held. And I called to let them know that I was gonna, that I was coming and, to put me on the agenda for me to speak. And then I got a call like a couple of days before to tell me that the meeting was canceled. And they would let me know when it got rescheduled.
So you can go online and see the minutes. And
Yeah.
interesting enough,
I
there is no
said
one.
Kitty
oh,
Kitty
and there
sent
was-
them to us.
Oh yeah, and it was interesting. No one was there to make public comment.
Now, quite frankly, I wasn't sorry that I didn't have to go to a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning in Kingston, but I still was,
So can we, the three
Okay,
of us
so-
get
Yeah,
together?
let's
Yes.
the 3 of us get together.
So
I think Kitty,
Randall
you
wants
could
to-
email out to all of us
I
comments.
Don't know where I saw.
Oh, she wanted
the
us still to
thing,
keep trying to go,
just
but
for
if
the
we don't have to,
record,
I would.
Yep.
I'm now looking at the Articles of Incorporation for the College at New Paltz Foundation. And I don't know where I saw the thing about dormitory housing, but in the original,
They'd have to be
article.
restated articles. If it's, are they the original articles that were filed?
this is the Certificate of Incorporation from
When was it filed?
1977.
Okay.
And it just says, to accept, hold, invest, reinvest, and administer any gifts, bequests, devises, benefits of trust, to make grants of financial assistance to the college, its students and graduates, including scholarships, grants, and loans to students and graduates, and assisting the recruitment and continuing development of the faculty, staff, and program of the college, and in general, to do any and all acts and things, and to exercise any and all powers which it might now or hereafter be lawful for the corporation to do or exercise.
Where did you pull that up?
This was this was sent by George Lithgow. to-
But that can be amended and restated by filing with the Secretary of
And
State.
somewhere, unless I was just having a nightmare.
I know what you're talking about. He sent us an email. I know
And
what you're
what you
talking
did
about.
say.
It was just 3 days ago.
Oh,
It was very recent. He
and
sent
it was
was-
amended.
Well, I don't remember exactly. I mean,
Okay,
sometimes
well,
I
this
can't
is
read
dated
everything in detail.
1977.
But he sent something a couple of days ago that spoke about something, and then you sent him back asking for some kind of clarification, and then he wrote you back something.
Okay.
So the two of you had a little bit of a
Yeah, this is
conversation.
Norman Keller and Bill Haggerty.
Oh,
These are, this goes
Mhm.
back a while.
These are.
So anyway, all right, well, let me look for a more recent one.
So I
So,
think though, but I think what we'd like to do, because we will end up spending a lot more time on it, so
Yeah.
Kitty, if you wanna go through and forward them to the whole board, and then Kevin and I will sit and get something out too, because I would like to actually include numbers that Kevin and I have gotten from Rescue Squad.
Yeah,
and-
and then what I can, now what the chief said.
And then we can get
you
the
guys-
chief's
Well, I
input.
did get the
Yeah.
input, and you guys brought some things up that we didn't even calculate. The chief said he would need 2 more officers for the, well, it's like, the 8 to 11 shift, I think. He would need 2 more officers for, I think it was the 8 to 11 shift, and 1 more officer for the 11 to 4 shift. So he basically said he'd need 3 more officers, but then he said 4, because you need the extra officer to fill in for all the, you know, the scheduling.
For
So-
time off.
For time
Time
off,
off,
right.
yeah.
So he said 4 officers.
Yeah.
I think we calculated, what I think was like around $50,000 in average cost for the police, 4550. No, that was
No.
just sort of starting before you add in benefits
100.
and retirement.
It's $100,000
I know, we were
bucks a
just
year.
trying to take an average cost of a police officer, understanding that those costs go up every year because they get, you know, they have their steps and their raises, but we were just trying to calculate the starting pace. We figured, I think, 50,000 salary, and then you have to figure in the benefits and the retirement. So I think we came up with $90,000 an officer, 4 officers, $90,000, and then 4 officers, $360,000. What we didn't calculate was the things you started talking about, was all the expenses of the vest, the uniform, the equipment, the, you know, and all that kind of stuff, in terms of what does it cost just to outfit a police officer,
We can take
which
the
is.
contractual and
right,
divide by the
exactly.
number of officers. we have,
Exactly,
come up with it.
exactly, so you need to add that into your numbers, but
Right.
that was what so the chief did say 4 officers, to basically compensate for the expense to the community for Park Point, in terms of the impact if they had to go to the campus, and also what, you know, the impact on the downtown at night.
And in fairness to Park Point, when they prepared their impact
Well, that was
statement,
done on the belief that,
what happened is they sent out a boilerplate letter, which I'm sure Kevin has seen, it's just a boilerplate that says, could you please let us know if what we're doing here is acceptable to you? And they're sending it out to people that do not have the expertise. In fact, they sent one out to the police chief, they sent one out to all the local hospitals, they sent it out to the rescue squad. I mean, and these people were not prepared to make fiscal.
no, but see, also, at the
you
same
know.
time, well, at least in regards to our police department, I mean, they said to the police chief, SUNY will be the SUNY police, because that was the belief.
Yep.
That the SUNY police will be responding, it won't come on to you, but is there still an impact to you? At which point, the chief said, probably not that much impact.
Right.
Now, again, he was probably thinking in regards to going to the dormitory, as opposed to, you know, us saying
Right.
to him, chief, regardless of whether the SUNY police respond to the campus, you still have to calculate these extra students downtown
These
at night.
extra bodies,
Now that they're living in our
absolutely.
community and they're downtown, you know, visiting our bars at night, so there's an impact regardless if the SUNY
Yep.
police, you know, have to go, you know, oversee it, there's still an impact to the community, and you need to calculate that. But since they've now said, you know, and then ultimately what we said was, look, we have to do a worst-case scenario, because we can't trust that the union will not
Right.
say that you cannot go off campus. So that's when we
The thing
said,
I don't understand
and so that's
about
the numbers we've come up, and you have to add on to
the
those.
planning process is, why does an applicant, I mean, assuming that they don't get a pilot, why does an applicant get to say, I think we're gonna cost this much, and therefore this is how much we should pay? Why doesn't the town just get to look at a $50 million project and say, you're gonna be assessed at $50 million, and that, just for the moment, taking out the nonprofit or the pilot part of it? I just don't understand that part of the whole planning process. Why do they calculate what they're gonna cost? I mean, we don't get to, right?
No,
So-
we don't, Kitty.
Well, no.
Okay, I do
Oh,
wanna
you
hear,
guys do?
I do wanna hear Kevin's answer though,
No,
this is, you know, what I mean?
I mean, but that's
don't
the-
understand that part of the planning
Like,
process.
where does that come in, that you're gonna build 13 buildings in a community? And how come they get to name what they're going to be able to,
Well, no,
what they're
no,
gonna
no.
pay?
Wait,
No,
I do
what they
wanna
do-
hear an
let-
answer.
There's impacts in the planning process, and then there's this whole IDA set of
But
rules and
forget,
regulations.
if all of that were removed,
But it's not, that's the problem.
but if you, I don't understand why the planning board is trying to calculate what
No,
this
no.
project would cost the
Well,
community.
no, this is,
Instead of just saying, whatever you're assessed at is what you're gonna pay. You're telling us you're gonna be a $50 million project. We're gonna go ahead on the assumption that you're gonna pay
but
$1 million in taxes
But the
every
problem
year.
is because of the IDA authority that gives an applicant
But-
the ability to apply.
But not in the planning process.
Well, no,
But the planning process helps you as a town defeat the assertion that they're making here that it's not gonna cost us much.
Well, no,
But
first,
why
in
wouldn't the planning board just say,
Kitty, it's in the,
you have your job with the IDA and the pilot, and, you know, good luck. But for our purposes, you're telling us this is a $50 million project, and so we don't care whether you're gonna have 10 police calls or 5 fire calls. This is gonna be the economic contribution to our community, your $50 million project.
But the
That's-
IDA doesn't have to listen to
But
anyone.
I,
but I wanna step back for a
They
second.
come after the planning board.
but the point is, Kitty,
That's the part,
the
I
Kitty-
don't understand why the planning board ever gets
Because-
involved in that
because
calculation.
if I'm correct, okay, and this is why maybe George Lithgow has to come do that course on seeker and stuff. During the FEIS, the SGEIS, so the supplement, the draft.
Financial impact statement.
The draft generic environmental impact statement, part of it is, part
Fiscal
of that
impact.
process, they have to put the economic impact of this project on a community. That
Okay.
is part of the planning process.
Okay,
So,
light bulb moment. So the alternative, they are required to do an alternative in their plan, and the alternative should show what would be the economic benefit to the community if there were no pilot. They are required to submit an alternative, and that should be in the impact statement.
well, in the impact statement, they have to show the impact on the community. And so they have given what they believe the impact on the community is. We've gone back and said the assumptions are wrong because we don't believe that the SUNY police will be be servicing it. So we want a worst-case scenario. We said we believe there's more of an impact on the police, on the fire and the rescue. So we said to them, you go back and redo your numbers because we
Right,
think your
but
numbers.
that's
Well, let me
under
just finish.
Plan A. That's
Let
under
me, I know
Plan
that what I'm
A,
saying.
but what
So let me
about
just finish,
Plan B?
let me just finish with Plan A for a second. So they go and they do that. That's partly why we're saying now we want an independent consultant to go review their numbers, to say, do we believe your numbers,
Yeah.
and stuff. And that's just part of the planning process. Now, you're right in the sense that they have to show an alternative,
I know they have to show an
plan.
alternative site plan, right?
no, they have to show,
But in reality, which process is easier for the town to kind of defend? And it seems to me it's the one where you're trying to show that the project has tangible financial impacts
Mhm.
on the community, and that you want to make sure that the taxpayers in our community aren't paying for that or
Right.
subsidizing
Footing the
that
bill.
out of their pocket.
Right, but
And it's easier to do it that way than to try to calculate the benefit that the project
But I would
brings.
like to show in the same document, that under seeker, in order not to do any financial harm, you might be assessed at this rate. But, if you were just a regular business, what is the loss to the community of letting them calculate what their costs are going to be, and therefore what they're going to be charged, versus what everybody else and every other small business owner does, which is to buy their business, buy their real estate, get their assessment, and pay their property taxes.
And that's because we don't have a specific model that's afforded individuals when they buy a home. We don't have an alternative. We have to pay the going rate.
Yeah.
But they're given the benefit of applying for funding that allows them to secure a different model of payment, okay? And that model of payment is supposed to offer a benefit to the community over the long term, but it doesn't necessarily translate that way, especially given the kind of project it is.
see, I said to you, when I've been dealing with this with George, in a way, it's like I said to him, Kitty, and I think it's getting to something in a way what you're saying. We're looking at what their cost is and making sure that it gets mitigated and it's not a cost to us, but it's net neutral. It's like, so
Right,
so
no
it's
harm.
like, right, exactly. So we make sure that there's no cost to us, and they make sure they calculate that they're gonna cover that cost, but then there's no benefit, we get nothing over and
Right,
above that. We're
right.
just covering the cost, and then there's nothing, and then.
Right,
But
so
what's the
you're right.
benefit
You-
then?
you
What's the
should-
next level of the
The
benefits?
easiest way to do it is the way we assess people. It's the dollar value, and this is your rate.
Right.
That's
Right.
why it's done that way, so that you don't have 15,000 people coming up with their own model about how they should be taxed.
No, I did ask George if it
Right,
was
we
feasible.
don't get that individual
Right,
option
right.
of saying,
No.
well, I didn't send a kid to the school this year.
Right, right.
So I said I did ask George, is it feasible for us as a community to basically say, if you're gonna be a business that's gonna come in and ask for some kind of pilot or tax break, don't come. Like, in other words, if you're not willing to pay full taxes, don't come to New Paltz. And he said that, I think he did say that there was some possibility to do something like that, and we'd have to talk about it and figure it out. We just can't do it now to apply to this project because
And
they're
we
in,
started.
they're already started, they're in,
and there's
they're in the
really-
queue. But we can start to consider that kind of,
There's nothing wrong with assisting a project for the first year or two while they ramp up.
Fair enough.
There's nothing wrong with that. But once you get all of your units rented and you have that revenue coming in, you have that income stream, I mean, I'd really like to see what the pro formas look like for this business, to see how much profit this entity will be making. And if they're making a tremendous amount of profit at taxpayers' expense, that's just not fair. It's not
I
fair,
don't
because
think
that
we can
profit,
see that.
where's
I-
that
I
profit
tried to
gonna
get
go?
those on Woodland Pond,
Where's
and
the
I
profit gonna
couldn't
go,
get 'em.
Kitty?
Oh,
It's gonna go outside the community.
yeah.
Randall wanted to say something, and then let's figure out how we wanna move forward because,
I had a
although
couple
we're
of
doing pretty good.
questions on the Park Point project. The first thing is, I was at the meeting on Monday, and in the conversation, I heard that they, or in the proposal, they had agreed to give the school district a sum of money as part of them coming here. Why couldn't we ask them to make a similar contribution to the fire and the police
We
department?
can, and we will.
In order to do that. That's
That would
number
be in the
one.
pilot.
Number two is what, and I haven't read their proposal, but it's a thought that sits in the back of my mind. I don't know how long, if they are successful in getting their pilot, I don't know how long the pilot runs, but the question I have that follows that is, once that pilot expires, what keeps them from saying to the college, here, we'll sell this to you, and then this
Nothing.
enormous project becomes a great big, non-taxable, 700-unit thing that, A, we've given them a pilot on, and they pay us less than probably what the land and the value of all that stuff is assessed at, and two, the pilot expires, and then they say, here you go, and then the college takes it on, and we
See,
get nothing out of it.
Now I know why you're a Republican thinking like that.
Well-
Well, they have a
Well, it's-
schedule, I
it's-
mean, they have
it's-
their schedule, but they would like it to be in the.
Quiet.
FEIA.
Right, they did, I mean, and Randall, you did notice, because, there was, and it was good, I mean, Monday night, there was probably 60 of us here. It was a very good turnout, and there was a lot of very good questions, and the same questions are being asked, and the majority of them, there are some people that feel this will have the impact on the community, will affect the housing stock and whatnot. I think we can get more information on. I do think this is a great project for the community. I think it's going to be a good project for the university. I think there's a lot of upside to it. The downside, though, all does lie in the first few pages of this, the fiscal impact and the pilot.
And
And I
that's
think it
because
really,
there's-
truly will improve this
Yeah,
community.
I
I honestly
agree.
do. Because it's interesting, they count the students, and Randall, I think you and I talked about this, is they count them a couple different ways, that there's not gonna be a lot of impact because the students are already here. Well, no, because supposedly they're commuters. A commuter is only in your community 2 to 3 days a week. These
Yep.
kids are now going to be here 7 days a week,
Right.
and they're gonna be here in those deadly hours when no good decisions are ever made between midnight and 4 a.m., for which Randall can tell us what our police do, and Ira can tell us what our police do, unfortunately.
And that's-
So it's that is the impact that is missing. They're stating on one hand, these kids are already here, don't worry. Well, no, they're not here.
Right,
They're
I
here for a
disagree,
few
too,
hours.
Because you know what I think? They'll up enrollment. They'll take more students.
And again, there are different numbers. They're running around 7,000. It has gone as high as 8,000. We are running, I believe, this year's around 76,000
But you
students,
know
including
what?
graduate. I don't know how much more and how quickly you can ramp up
Well,
a university.
the
I honestly don't know.
DEIS says that the
Yeah.
graduate studies program is under-enrolled,
Right.
which means they are not
But-
fully
but you know,
enrolled
Right.
at the
I'm gonna just-
capacity they want.
But I'm gonna say, I don't have a problem with the college upping their enrollment. I don't have a problem. I don't think we should say we don't want the college to grow. I think the college is a benefit to this community. And and the more successful the college is, the more successful the community is. It's just that the impact of the college's growth cannot be on the back of the town
Right.
taxpayers.
We have to
That's-
plan for it.
So,
Right.
so that's where, and when I first met with Don
I
Christian.
don't think anybody actually has a feeling about whether or not they should grow. It's just that this document says this will
No, I know
not
that,
create.
but,
Right.
I mean,
Right.
but in other words,
That's-
it's so funny, when I met with Don Christian the first time after assuming my role as supervisor, and we met, and he asked me to come meet with him, and I got the same stock thing that they say all the time, we're not gonna grow, we're not gonna grow, we're not gonna grow, and I just looked at him and I said, Don, I don't mind if you grow, okay, you wanna become a university, you wanna be this, you wanna be that, we're all here because of the college. I said, the problem is the impact on the taxpayers, because you're tax exempt. Every time you grow, the expense is burdened by the rest of us. If there was a way to offset the cost, I don't think anybody would complain, but they've gotten into this model of like constantly saying, we're not gonna grow.
Well, and the difference in this case is you have a different structure. If it was just the university doing this,
But we'd have no say.
there would be little to no say.
Right.
But because you have a for-profit entity involved,
Mhm.
it's a little different analysis. And so I agree with you too. I think the college should grow. I think it's a great benefit to the community. But now, because of this for-profit component, I don't want the taxpayers are already burdened.
Mhm.
I don't want the taxpayers to subsidize a for-profit corporation and their owners in profiting from this project, taking the profit outside the community to another project in another town doing the same thing, and we're paying the bill. So that's the difference with this project.
Well,
And I think we- well-
actually, all three of the largest pilot projects in our community are public-private. And the public is how they are tax exempt, and the private is the manager. Woodland Pond is the Kingston Regional, right?
Hospital.
The manager is
Kingston
New Life, right?
Yeah.
Huge multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Huge.
The Family Institute for Family Health is the nonprofit. LaSalle Mutual Funds of Baltimore.
Which is a huge multi-billion-dollar,
Is the
and it's been sold
manager.
2 or 3 times
Yeah,
for
so
hundreds
the
of millions of dollars.
public-private partnership is not working out that well for the public.
So Kitty and I were yesterday, Ken Adams, who's the head of Economic Development Corporation for the state, was at a Chamber of Commerce lunch. So Kitty requested that I go so we could both be there to possibly talk about the impact of economic development on a community when they don't pay taxes. So I got him at the beginning, Kitty got him at the end. But the funny thing
It's like,
was,
where's the exit?
but the funny thing is, so they put this thing up about, for the governor's state of the state, and that one of the things that they're doing is creating these hotspots, where if you have an innovative business, they're gonna create these hotspots, and if you have an innovative business, you can come, and we're gonna help you grow, and we're gonna help you incubate, and we're gonna exempt you from all taxes, sales tax, property taxes, blah, blah, blah taxes. And they started to go through it, I looked at Ken, I go, look at number 2, and they just jumped right over it, because I had already gotten Ken on property taxes and New Paltz at the beginning of the meeting.
But
And
then
then
during the Q&A, we
somebody
said,
said-
this is really a problem that you're exempting, you're gonna lure all these new businesses and promise them, no property taxes. He said, we don't promise no property taxes. And we said, look at your slide.
It was right up there,
Look at
in the
your
paragraph, in
slide.
between the
Oh,
parentheses.
oh, we'll need
No
to work
property
on that.
taxes.
Yeah.
So Kitty and I pointed that out, they said, we gotta go back and work on that.
Yeah.
But, and I think we all agree then, the key part is here, I still believe this is a really good project, but we only have one shot at it. And we have never seen a project of this size, of 700 and almost 50 beds being brought into our community. We're gonna get one shot at it. The shot at it is, what is the impacts? How do we get the most out of it? I actually do believe, and probably would get a lot of disagreement, or maybe not, I don't know. It could actually potentially improve the housing stock in the village also. I think it could open up some areas where we could then increase some affordable housing, and we could see upgrading to some of the housing that
Well, maybe I'll get
It's
some of the students to
troublesome.
move out of the family.
Right,
Maybe I'll
is
get
so-
more families back into the
Right, we
village.
can get more families back into the village. Some of the housing stock may be turned back
Oh,
into,
Which is a point David Porter made, that if those houses return to family housing, then we're going to see more kids in our school district.
And and I agree, that is an impact, and we can see an upgrade to the stock. We might see more affordable housing return to the village, which is what we need. And, you know, these are family houses already, because they're not, you know, these are houses where they just simply took the bedrooms and they rent them out per
Right.
bedroom, so.
They're just not zoned
They're
properly.
just not zoned properly, and I think we could see a lot of improvement. So this project can
Okay.
do a lot to improve our community. I really honestly believe that. It's just that the devil is in,
Well,
The devil's in the taxes.
is
okay.
in,
Well, I
exactly.
think also, I think one could look at this as, look, if this project's important to the
So,
state,
I
it's
think
important to the
almost done.
state,
Let's just do
this project is important to the college,
Yep.
and it's got an impact on the community, and we should use this project, if it's going to happen, we have to get the most that we can and protect our taxpayers to the best of our ability. So Kitty, you will.
So Kitty, could you email out your concerns? We're gonna be going. Kevin and I will get together.
I need someone to email it to me.
Yeah,
Okay, I can
can you
email it to you.
email this to all of us?
Yes, I
actually?
can. Yeah, I just,
Because it'll make
again,
it easier for us to do
he didn't get it
edits.
to me until 6:45.
No, that's fine.
And I just went and printed it out, so I'll email it to you all tomorrow,
Can we
okay?
just do the
All right.
Okay,
vouchers?
I'd like to, there's one thing I'd like to bring up, we don't have to do it tonight, but we've all talked about trying to get this escrow stuff in place and, get everything done the right way and whatever. And there's a lot of other things that happen with the building department. Stacy had commented to me that Edmunds, which is, that does our financial bookkeeping and all that, that there was a software application for the building department. It has construction permitting and code enforcement application, an escrow application, a business licensing and accounts receivable application that we could add to the Edmunds system. We don't have to make a decision to now.
How much is it?
It's $23,000. It's $10,500 for the construction permitting and code enforcement, which would make things easier for Stacy and stuff, but I'm really more interested in the escrow portion, which is $4,500. I don't know if you have to buy it all together.
Is
Then-
there an annual charge on top of that?
Then there's an annual maintenance of $2,100 and
Can
nine.
Can you ask them to come in and give us a demo?
We could do that. I don't know. We could possibly do that. But, Stacy started researching this a little bit before. I said to Stacy, I'd like to get this sooner than later because we really want to get up top of the escrow stuff. So she did bring this into me today, and showed it to me. I can get you guys, make copies for it, share it with you, see if maybe they, can get us more information. I would just like to, sooner than later, try to possibly move this forward because we're so anxious to get the escrow stuff done correctly that why not, if we can get a system to add on to the escrow, onto Edmunds right away. So it is
Can I just
$23,000.
ask her to call around and talk to people who are using it?
Sure.
'Cause I know people who have, a system looks fabulous and the salesman looks fabulous, and then when you actually try and work with it, it's.
And
Yeah, except we do have Edmunds, that is our system.
that is-
So this is a,
So this escrow thing would just be
I would just-
integrated.
it's part of it,
Your idea is good.
it-
Call around to the town of
yeah.
East Fishkill,
It-
town of Poughkeepsie, and see what there is.
but it's software that comes from the Edmunds system
Okay.
provides the
So
Edmunds
it would be
software.
integrated
Is our
into it.
financial software.
Okay.
Right.
So the fact, they also use it for a piece of their assessment or something because it says that her preliminary data is already in there. Okay, like section block and lot or something. So that the building department, everything she does, if she uses Edmunds, would be fully integrated, permits and fees like that with the general ledger. And then the escrow section, which is a separate module, so yeah, you have to buy it separately. But then everything that, Kelly inputs automatically updates in the general ledger, in the financial offices.
And what happens,
This, it's
Integrates
all
everything.
integrated.
it integrates everything, like she said.
There
it
is,
takes-
okay.
Go ahead.
So I asked her about the, the migration of her existing data, and there's a bit of a problem there, but they would, the other section block and lot is pretty much already in there, and the rest of it, they can have a historical thing and move forward.
But it's also like she was explaining, like it takes about 15 minutes to a half hour when anybody comes in to put all the stuff and to do the permit and stuff. So like basically, she would get the information, it goes right into the system. It, basically, they go down to you, they pay their thing, they go, you know, they pay her when they pay it, then they go to Rosanna, they pay it. Basically, when Rosanna inputs it, it goes directly up. Okay, well, when you bring the check up, it directly goes up to like Patty, and all they do is go down with a receipt to Stacy to say we paid it, and it's like really, the permitting process and everything is quicker, it's more efficient for the people, it's more efficient for them in terms of bookkeeping. It should really do a lot and stuff, and we really do have to start to integrate all this. So if you guys want, we'll get a little bit more information, I'll make you copies of this. I'll have Stacy do a little bit more research, but my goal is to sort of, hopefully,
Maybe with a thought of consolidation as well, to make sure.
Oh, okay, so you already use Edmunds for your utility, for the water and sewer. And that's where it would pick it up from. The parcel IDs are in the utility bill. You don't use it for taxes yet, do you? Okay, because the taxes, it would also be in there too, just saying.
so we can look through this a little bit more
Oh,
and
no,
then.
she
Yeah.
uses, no, because Rosanna uses county. And I wouldn't recommend changing that.
All right, so we'll.
Okay, so I just want you guys to know, you know, hopefully we can move on this soon, because let's get this escrow stuff going. Okay, so I think that's pretty much it, other than the warrant and,
We can wait on approving minutes tonight.
yeah, I was gonna say, Rosanna's gonna kill us,
I
but
gave her my comments.
I really have to read them too. I just haven't had a chance with all this consolidation finance committee out of thin air numbers that I've just pulled. But anyway, so we'll do the.
But
minutes.
Roseanne, thank you. I just
Yeah.
want to say Roseanne
You've
has
done a
been
phenomenal.
above and beyond duty, that, you know, the requirement under open meeting and all that is, I believe, 5 days, 7?
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Draft
She
is
took-
10 days,
mandatory.
yes. And we have them usually within a few days, so thank you very much, and we apologize for not approving them more timely.
Well,
But
we'll
they are in my email,
Get a cute little face.
very quick, yes.
She really wants them done, so we have to
Yes.
promise next
And
week we'll do
have-
them.
have-
But,
She
but,
did her part.
no, she did,
Yes,
she
you have
did.
done your part
And,
above and
um,
beyond, so thank
And
you.
just so you do know, also, we're putting together, we've put together books up in my office, just so you know. We have all the 2010 and all of 2011 minutes in a book, and we're putting all the 2012 minutes are in a book, and as soon as these get updated, so instead of anybody having to go search or go bother Rosanna, you can come right into my office, get out the book if you wanna look up minutes to find out what we've done.
And we'll get them online.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Okay.
Well, that's the goal, is the website things too. We're gonna encumber some money from last year for the website this year. Randall's already been talking to us about some people that we should be talking to. Brian Kimmets has sent us some names of some people. And I suspect if we don't get ourselves together, when we go down to the Association of Towns, there's probably people who, so that is our goal, is to get that site up, running, and accessible. So you wanna just guys do the warrant, and then we can go home before 11 o'clock?
Any questions
We all
on
have
the
to
warrant?
fill out these financial disclosure
Oh,
forms.
I gave,
you're so good,
They're
Kitty.
in our box.
I've got to bring mine, there's a financial disclosure form from Alan.
yeah,
Every year we fill it
I
out.
own nothing and have nothing, so.
It's probably,
I didn't
it's probably
show
on your
it,
desk.
yes.
Alan stuck it in our box a few days ago.
Okay.
penalty,
What?
the penalty.
A penalty to own? Yes, I know, trust me.
Oh, Rosanna.
I didn't get my wonderful tax bill that reduced taxes.
No, the only thing I was,
I don't think it's
unless
in
this has
this
changed, what I was trying to do is the
I
front
think I-
page is supposed to total at the end. And I'm a little, they don't seem to total. There seems to be different numbers, unless I'm losing,
210.
unless I'm doing my math wrong.
You know, I gotta tell you, because it's the beginning of the year, and there's so many, what's it called, contracts and things. When I was going over the approvals today, it was like breathing deep. You know, it's not like, you know, every time they want me to go over and approve this stuff, I always say, you're asking me to spend money. And I keep turning them down, telling them, I don't wanna look, I don't wanna look
Yeah, no,
until
it
they
does work.
force me.
No, it does work, yeah, because we're doing, it does work,
2 years.
the math
Yeah, well,
works.
it's 2013 and
Yeah,
2012.
no, I just wanted to
so
make sure. But there was a couple in here that I don't know if Kevin or I signed.
There's a couple in here I didn't sign.
I just want to see what was paid.
Oh, there was one I know you did about the police chief's dinner,
Yeah,
and he spoke with me about that, and he said he always pays for his own dinners, except when he's doing town business. And that particular dinner that he's asking for, to be paid for, is they're giving an award to one of our officers for going above and beyond during the hurricane, where he actually delivered light to people, to people during flood and blah, 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 blah. So he's only asking because one of our officers is getting an award, and he's going there to give the award, so that was why he asked for that particular one.
Okay.
So I just want you to know we had that conversation, so I thought I'd bring that back to the board.
$110,000 a year and can't afford a $35 dinner.
That's the only time he asks. Be nice.
And, I continue to see the Sam's Club bills.
Well, Sam's Club is because of Jim, because of the youth
I see
center.
a lot of pasta, a lot of ragu.
Well, they do, but,
He feeds them.
Yeah.
And a lot of peanut butter.
Yeah, I mean, these kids need it, is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do.
All
They
right.
come hungry.
I'm with you. This
They
is,
do.
unfortunately, this is
But the only,
unfortunately,
Yeah.
the youth center has become a place where children eat, and I say children because they eat 1 to 2 meals a day. And because they do
So
not
they're
have,
regulars.
unfortunately,
Okay.
they are people, and Jim does know them, the staff does know them, and they will come there and they have not eaten either a earlier meal or have not eaten a meal for the whole day.
Well, then
And
they
they
need to
are,
eat
these are
something.
people that are falling through the cracks, and unfortunately, we are the safety net, and it's,
but what I would like to do is I would like to say that he shouldn't be using Sam's Club and he should use BJ's, because Sam's Club is owned by Walmart, and I really have a very hard time signing that
and
voucher.
just so,
So-
and
Signing
just so
that-
you know,
signing that voucher.
we have
But
had that
we
discussion.
really can't get
but
Which
Susan,
Shoprite or Stop
they
and Shop.
didn't come to New Paltz.
I understand
So,
that.
And just so you know, the only other problem
Although they
is
do
the
avoid
closest,
little 5-year-old kids
Yeah.
to
You know,
me.
what-
Sam-
what-
and the closest BJ, just so you know, was all the way, we
I
did
know, it's in
discuss it, it's
Fishkill,
all the way in
it's in
Fishkill.
Fishkill, I know.
Yeah.
Gene, you're
So-
right.
It's in Fishkill, and
Because not only do
Sam's
we
is in
pay for the
Kingston, but I
food,
still have a
we
real
pay
hard
for the
time signing
We
that.
pay for the trouble. Here's the thing though, that now the.
They do get a
there
lot
is
of
one little
donated,
difference,
they do get a lot
is
of
that
donated
do.
foods, so,
He
yes.
can do bulk at Sam's Club or BJ's, and you can't really do that, but
Right.
right now it's can sale at Shoprite.
I know.
You can
And-
stock up, babe.
They actually do have a box on their back porch if anyone's interested, if they'd like to donate food items, they accept them at any time.
Yeah,
It's
they're
on their
sending
back
that out
porch
now.
if they are not open. And
We should have a box here.
they do
If I
come
should
in,
have made
I know
that
the staff does
announcement.
come in frequently, and they will
Yeah.
find foodstuffs in the box of peanut butter, crackers, graham crackers, snack items. And again, it's items they really need they do have a refrigerator there, but people will leave it prior to them opening at,
Yeah.
Okay,
I
Laura,
thought it
Laura,
was-
Laura had something she wanted to say.
Just have a
Loud, Laura, because
about
the,
that part of the program, the the county youth program, is constantly being awarded funding. Does our youth program, do they submit for that?
Well, they get money
as part
for-
of the
They get-
healthy
they
food
get-
Jim is
program?
pretty aggressive about that, he does.
I don't know about the healthy food program, I know that they get money if there's some other youth things, we can ask him and talk to
I will
him.
ask him
Specifically
that.
for
Yeah.
the children in need, I'm sure
Right.
they must have funding for that too.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
more.
was there some,
Yeah. I'm good.
All
I'll
right,
second it.
any prepays?
okay, well, wait, we'll.
No, I
we
moved,
gotta-
I moved that supervisor sign to pay the warrants to close out, I believe we're closing out
And I
2012.
think there's still some
Well,
scratch,
I
there's
think you'll
some,
get them in February because January bills won't come
That's
until
right,
then.
till
and
amendment,
there is
so-
some straggling, some other straggling stuff, some prepays and
So
stuff.
it looks like
But we also still
2012,
have to, we're also gonna get hit up with the $250,000 for the fire department, we haven't cut that check yet, that's from 2012.
Time for us to get our check from Time Warner.
oh, yeah, perfect. So for 2012, we're gonna pay $245,717.39. And for 2013, $134,308.37, for a total of $375.76.
Second, Kevin,
Second.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion so carried. And we will get we'll get a couple prepays next week, because Patty was putting together a couple, and then she had some more, and I said, just put them all together for next week, and we'll deal with them.
Move to adjourn.
Okay, just one real quick thing, you'll see in your packet, we did have a meeting with the Teamsters, last week, myself, Jeff, and Jean. It was very interesting because the Teamsters are doing open negotiation, which means that anybody who belonged to the Teamsters came. They were all sitting there. We sat out here. The whole discussion was in public. I think in some ways it was very good because there was a lot of discussion about health insurance, and I think the employees got to understand that we weren't looking to take the benefits away from them, and the changes we made were actually an attempt to allow them to keep their benefits without having them to have to pay more money. So I think there was an opportunity to really talk about a lot of things, but you will just see in your packet what their first blush 46 questions were to us. They put in 46 things. Some are contractual, some of them were informational, and you have all my notes on the side. And we're gonna be meeting next Wednesday. Oh, we also met with Bill, and myself, Jean, and Jeff worked on the personnel policy with Bill. We went through a number of stuff. He's coming back next Wednesday. We're starting at 9 o'clock. We're gonna finish up the personnel policy and be able to bring that back to the board, all vetted out with the attorney. We're gonna get back to him in terms of some of our feelings on this and what's really important to us. And then we have the SUE, which is the employees in town hall, pretty much contract negotiation Wednesday afternoon. And hopefully we'll maybe look at the lieutenant's contract that day too. So that's just sort of a quick little update. Okay, so do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, all in favor?
Second.
All second? All in
Aye.
favor? Motion's so carried.
Suppose you come in with snow plow. Does that mean you're gonna come in with snow plow?